And it's been going pretty well. Although tomorrow will get put to the test when I go to take apart the dryer. Because I am not good at fixing shit. The new What We Do in the Shadows TV show started last night, I think.
Yeah, did you watch it?
Yeah, we watched the first one. It was pretty good.
Funny?
Yeah. Had some good moments.
Alright, we're live. Link is out. Been playing a lot of Stardew Valley.
Oh, yeah?
It's delightful.
I haven't been on that for a bit.
Just growing my crops, man.
I've been playing my bass a lot.
It's just the zen that I needed.
There you go.
I'm in fall right now. I've built my coop in my barn. I'm getting ready to do some animal stuff in the winter. You can't grow crops.
Nice.
You did some play of that, right?
Yeah, I played a little bit. I need to get back into it, though.
I'm trying
It's
to
been a while.
trying to get the greenhouse reopened, because in the first playthrough I did, I never made it that far because you gotta like save stuff for the bundles.
Yeah.
Well, like in my first playthrough, there were certain things I didn't realize I should be saving, and so I had to wait until my second year to get it, and I just never made it that far. But I'm on track to potentially get it opened up by the end of the first winter. I don't know why. That's just a goal of mine. It's good to have goals.
Exactly. Gotta have something to work towards, right?
Exactly.
We actually went to a board game convention on Sunday. It was a small one, but we had fun.
Near where you live?
Yep.
How's that?
It was all right. It was fun. It's down. It's funny because that's where they had the first Days of the Dead convention. It's kind of like it's an old airport. So they rebuilt our airport like 5-6 years ago. The one that you're familiar with. The old one's like across the highway from where the new one is. And this hotel's still over there. So it's like it's in the middle of nowhere now, like a war zone or something.
Huh.
But it was fun.
This Friday, my boy Joe Bob's back.
Yeah, I know. Excited for that. Can't wait to see what he picks.
I know, it should be interesting. He said something on Twitter about the rant he's preparing that's going to piss off horror fans, and I'm like, oh god. That always makes me nervous, because he gets into like touchy political territory sometimes, which was obviously like, he used to do that, but it's just a different time, and sometimes he like goes down these old man rabbit holes. I'm like, oh, don't ruin it, Joe Bob. Don't ruin it. I've been waiting for this my whole life.
Yeah, he's a little too old to be woke. It doesn't come across well
Well,
sometimes.
yeah, it's weird. Like, it's like he is, but he isn't. It's like, I feel like he understands that change has happened, but he doesn't necessarily. He's like too old and stubborn to give up some of the language stuff, I think.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to, well, that's the way it was when they grew up. I watched The Burbs on Shudder the other day. I love that movie. It's been a long time.
So let's see. We're gonna talk about the Craft remake.
I didn't get a trailer for that one.
There's no trailer. They just announced that it was being directed by Zoe Lister-Jones.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Which is big, because remember Blum said he couldn't find he didn't know any like lady horror director or something.
Yeah.
So he found one. So we're gonna talk about that. I want to talk about this Jim Jarmusch zombie movie that was like just announced as being released in July. You got to listen to the cast on this thing. Or maybe I'll save it for the show. It's pretty wild.
Oh yeah, I know who Zoe Lister-Jones is.
So yeah, I recognized her because she was on a New Girl,
Yeah,
and then she had a role on another like kind of more traditional sitcom. In the
Life in Pieces.
Yes. Zoe Lister-Jones. Remember the show Life in Pieces? I mean, and then so on New Girl, it's when Schmidt dates like a politician lady that's all like really severe and harsh. She's like a skinny blonde. No, redhead. She's a redhead.
She was a redhead in New Girl, I think.
But she's directing a remake of The Craft. Do you remember that movie with Nev Campbell? My wife doesn't remember.
Yeah.
The original Craft actually probably it's like a '90s movie. Yeah, I have it on VHS. There you go. My mother-in-law brought over a bunch of old Disney VHS movies that we were watching over the weekend. It was like The Little Mermaid, where you could see how faded all the colors were. It was really funny.
Nice.
It's still played though.
Yeah, we have a bunch of those in a box somewhere, or at least we used to. In the clamshell cases, no less.
Yeah, these were clamshells too. It was the original version of The Little Mermaid VHS that had to be pulled off the shelves because of the weird wiener on it.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was in the tower, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
It's funny because I think I worked in a video/music store when that came out, but I don't remember having to pull it off the shelves.
Well, I can't remember if I think they may have just reissued it.
Yeah. Because that Disney shit, when they would every time they release a new one on VHS, that was like a huge draw for the store, where it had people doing pre-orders and crap, and we had to push the crap out of it.
What store was this?
It's called On Cue,
Okay,
which was part of the Musicland group.
So you got to work at like a traditional video store, like old school style.
Well, it wasn't a rental store. It was they sold So you know where you remember Musicland?
No, we had what the hell was that? No, I'm trying to think. We had like some. Lord, what was the big like? What are those big CD stores used to be called? Like the music stores. She's not paying attention to me.
Do you remember Suncoast Video?
Media Play. What was like the big store you bought CDs? Media Play. That's what we had.
Yeah, well, Media Play may have even been part of it. But do you remember Suncoast Video?
So I've heard of all these places, but we didn't have them.
Yeah. Well, Suncoast Video was all movies that was always in the malls, and Musicland was music store that was always in the malls, and then it was the same company. On Cue was for small towns without malls, and they mashed the two together. So we just sold people movies.
I worked at a place. My first job out of college was like I just needed money. I was like figuring out what the hell I was gonna do. So I got a job in a strip mall. Here, we'll watch strip mall. Basically, it's just like this dude owned a restaurant, and he had some extra money, and for whatever reason, decided he wanted to own like a store, kind of what you're talking about, but like a little tiny independent thing. You walk in, they had movies, and then you could buy DVDs and like video games and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think they sold stuff too. They bought stuff, so like some of it was secondhand. And
buying and selling
so
stuff.
My first day, I probably told this in the show before. They totally changed how Skype video works. Cool. Thanks for the warning.
Eric, you missed one show, and
I hate Skype so much. So my first day, he's like, yeah, like it gets quiet a lot, so let me show you how to work the Xbox. And I had never played an Xbox before, so I worked there for like 2 months, made a bunch of money under the table. Most of the time it was quiet, and I would sit in the back and play Matrix, Enter the Matrix. I think
Enter
it was
the
called,
Matrix. Enter the Matrix.
on
yeah.
Xbox, or maybe it's PS2. That game was sick. I still love that game. I went
Yeah,
back
it game's great.
and played it on GameCube, and I'm like, this does not play great anymore.
Wow. That's like any of those.
But like just being able to
3D
slow mo,
things.
run up a wall, and kick a dude in the face was like so. And you could do the like flippy do with the gun while you're like shooting people. That was pretty amazing. But so one day I go into work, or no, I got a voicemail from the dude, and he was like, "Yeah, so he ran a restaurant. It was like 45 minutes north. So like on weekends or like a lot of days I was working, he was nowhere around. He let me close the store on the first day too, which is hilarious. But he sent me, or he left me a voicemail, and it just said like, "Hey, so the money that I had to like seed the store was in a safe and in my restaurant, and somebody broke in and stole it. So I'm gonna close the store. So like, if you could just go in and
Are you okay? Are you gonna make it?
Sorry, that was me trying to hawk a loogie off camera. He's like, yeah, if you could just leave your key on the counter and then lock the door on the way out. So I went in there. Damn it, I don't think I'm gonna get through this show.
That music store I worked at was right at my senior year of college, getting ready to graduate with my computer degree, and I already had my first computer job lined up, and the district manager was trying to talk me into staying and becoming a manager, and she had the manager at the store that her office was in try and talk me out of it. And he's like, look, I understand you went to school and you want to use your degree. He's like, this job's really great. I have an engineering degree from Purdue. And my honest to God response was, and you're working here? That's fucking stupid.
Takes all kinds, you know.
All right, I'm back. I got a cough drop. So at the end of that story, that is not at all worth the build-up, is that I left $15 on the counter and I took that copy of Enter the Matrix. I left him a note.
This game and I became really attached this summer.
Yeah, we really did. But that was really weird. Oh man, the best sub place in the world was next door.
Oddly enough, that same music store is where I first heard Mayhem. From Lords of Chaos.
John, I might need a little bit of help tonight if I can't talk.
Okay. Whatever works. I can, fumble around for... You might need to send me the outline, though. I'm not sure.
F you.
Oh, gosh. I'm just sending an email real quick.
It's honestly amazing that I never worked at a video store. I just feel like there weren't that many. By the time I was like working age, it was mostly Blockbuster.
Blockbuster and movies.
And nobody working at a Blockbuster ever looked happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple. They were usually like the teens who were just there for the effing around.
Well, the people at the like mom and pop video stores always looked like they were chill because they were doing whatever the fuck they wanted to. Oh my god, my throat is killing me. I've been sick since the day you guys recorded last week.
Well, that was when I got sick too. And I'm
Bananas, dude.
Today was like I felt worse for the first time, since the day before.
Cannot stop coughing. We're live, by the way, John.
Great.
Oh, Casey.
Nice. Huh?
Casey, so are you using that input thing right now?
No, not for. I'm using it for my headphones. I'm using my regular USB Yeti. Still,
Does it have more than one input on it?
it's got 2 inputs on it. It's 2 XLR inputs, but it'll also double as the guitar jack. Although I think one is mic only. I'm not sure yet.
Okay, so you could put one XLR, and then when you say guitar jack, that's like a 1/4-inch stereo plug.
One of these.
Yeah. And then it mixes them into one signal that it puts out?
Yep.
Do they each
Although
have
I think you can do 2 signals. I haven't tried that yet.
do they each have level knobs?
Yep.
Okay.
They have gain knobs, and you can do line or instrument input.
So John, until we're kind of getting to the point where I'm gonna have to record probably out in the house for a few months at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sort of trying to workshop how this is gonna work with like the least amount of disruption possible for the like audience.
You don't want to like, go the Joe route and use your toilet as
No.
basically the.
The problem is that the whole way the show is recorded now stems from this rig working the way that it does with you guys hearing the bumpers, it going live the tape so it doesn't have to be edited, being able to live stream. So I think with this piece of equipment that Casey has, and then like I think I might be able and then maybe I think I can make it work. The compromise may be with the live streaming. I can try to do it with actually live streaming.
Yeah, I haven't tried any of that yet.
Worst
But
case,
it shows up as like your sound card in Windows.
yeah. Worst case scenario. Well, I think with what Casey's describing, I think I could still make it so that you guys would hear the bumpers and they'd show up on the show, so that I wouldn't have to edit. The question is, can I also live stream from the laptop? If I can't, my thought was that I could just immediately throw the video up onto YouTube and send that link out. So the biggest difference is they wouldn't get it live.
I could always run the live stream while you're recording audio.
But after a while, because I thought about that. After a while, we put the videos live to YouTube, and they're basically used as like audience discovery, right? So like
Yeah.
a random person finding the video, I want them to see the fully produced thing with the bumpers, with all the graphics. Now, I'd still be recording that because that's how I record the show anyway. So I guess theoretically, it depends on what patrons want. We can just poll them and ask, like, since they're not interacting with us live, does it matter if it's not live? If they're still getting the video?
Well, I mean, the graphics and stuff we could do pretty easily, and I've got to think that through XSplit, any audio I'm getting is going to go through that stream if I set it up right. So I don't think that's going to be a big problem if you got it set up for us to hear the bumpers.
I can theoretically get you guys audio. The other thing is, though, I've heard what it sounds like on your guys' end, and it sounds like shit. Like, you guys can hear the bumpers, but they don't sound good. You know what I mean? They sound like they're coming through a tin can.
Yeah,
so
they're definitely not perfect, but
so I don't know. But all this is theoretical. I gotta get the actual hardware set up and see what it does, see what I can do with it. And then eventually
I was only paying attention to like 30% of that conversation.
That's fine. I'm gonna need some equipment, and I need some time to figure it out. But I don't.
Yeah.
How much was that thing you had, Casey?
$150.
Yeah, that's the most expensive thing I would need, and like I need a probably Cat 5 cable so I can jack right into the Matrix.
We got you, boo. We got you.
Hell, I could probably make you a Cat 5 cable if we got down to it, but it's not expensive either. So
I mean, it's not the post-apocalypse, so I think we can just
no. Let's have Casey make it. Actually, I'm with him on this one.
We can make a whole video series out of it.
Yeah.
Casey makes cable.
I mean, it's like a 5-minute process, dude. It's not that big a deal.
Oh man. Yeah.
God.
Good times. Where is everybody? What the f? Where's
so,
Cece?
Now I'm really curious what this is gonna look like once everybody signs on.
See, I can't get mine. I dropped my, like you were telling me last week, Eric, after you were watching my recording. I dropped my little preview screen down there, and it's not resizing anymore. You know what I'm talking about?
Sorry, come again?
So, I've got that little preview screen on mine, and you were telling me last week after watching the recording that I could drag it down and it would reshape the windows on the main stream.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that for me anymore,
Yeah.
which probably is part of that new update you're talking about.
This is weird. Yeah, so like I can add people up to the top. I can't put myself. I have this little
Right.
window of myself. Oh wait. Oh, can I expand it? Ooh, I can expand it.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, this is gonna be weird. We'll figure it out though. Maybe this will work. If it shows you guys in like a perfect rectangle, and then I can just kind of stick myself at the bottom, then maybe that's actually perfect.
That looks kind of cool.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, and then I can just move myself around.
Now I blurred my background.
It's like such a shitty effect that I can see it like bouncing back and forth trying to.
Yeah, no. It bounces every time I move.
Wait, is it blurred now?
No. Here,
Oh.
watch. Now it's blurred.
Oh yeah, I like it. It looks good.
Yeah, but if I move around too much, it starts getting jerky.
Yeah,
Shaky.
it's
So
a-
we're,
it's a
we'll
little
jump.
janky.
Oh, here's CC.
Do 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 do.
I do know people have been using that thing for podcasting, though, Eric. I've seen a couple videos on it. I just haven't tried it myself, but I'll do some experimenting too. You basically need just 2 lines in there, right? Is what you're looking for.
Ooh, I might be able to put myself like perfectly in the center of you guys, like Voltron. Sorry, what's that, Casey?
I say, are you basically just looking to be able to have 2 audio streams that you're controlling?
Well, yeah. So the way this is set up now, basically, I have a board. My mic goes into the board. I play the bumpers out of an iPad that go into the board. The board then mixes those 2 things together, and it goes into my computer. And then I tell Skype, "This is my mic," so that Skype sends the mix of those 2 audio signals to you guys. That's how you guys are hearing it over Skype.
Interesting.
It sounds simple. It was not simple to set up. But, so yeah, but it sounds like with that thing, I could do the same thing. 2 inputs, have it come out as one, and then you basically tell Skype, that's my mic.
You would have to figure out how you're going to run your iPad into it. What do you run your iPad into the board now?
So right now I use a stereo, just like an 1/8" stereo thing on both ends, but they make 1/4" adapters. So then I would just put an adapter on the end that would give me that
Okay,
instrument
gotcha.
cable and just go in from there. It should work because it doesn't need power or anything, so the adapter wouldn't be an issue.
Hmm.
Hey, Cece.
What up?
How are things in Hotlanta? Do you have pink nails?
There are things.
Do you have
Huh?
Oh,
do you have
boy.
pink fingernails?
I do have pink fingernails.
That's so unwitch-like.
Is
There-
CC super robot-y for anybody else, or is that just me?
Y'all are super robot-y to me.
Don't make it about us. It's about you.
Beep, beep, boop, boop.
Listen. Here, let me restart my Skype.
Might need to restart your modem. Where's Joe? Oh man, I'm gonna yell at this guy.
Are you?
Oh, there he is. Were you just sitting there waiting for me to fucking say something about you?
No, it was a happy accident.
Nice.
This
Good for you.
This new Skype video setup is a friggin' nightmare. God
I would love to have a one show where Eric joins and is like, "Oh, Skype's the same as last time. This is
damn.
totally
This is
cool."
incredible.
Like, I actually worry you have
Guys.
like memory issues where you sign on every time and it seems new to you.
No, they fuck with it a lot. Well, I mean, listen, a lot over 12 years of doing a podcast, right? Like,
Yeah, no,
we've gone through a lot of changes together, John.
Well, it is Microsoft's now, so
You have like Memento, but only for
Alright.
the features of.
I just never want to have to
certain
relive
software.
like that one time where it was trying to force me to use Windows 10 app Skype, which is a piece of crap, and I had to like go through some bootleg site to get an old packaged version of old school Skype, so it would work. That's what we're running on now. So if they ever disable that, show's over. There are no other VoIP options out there, John.
Okay. There we go.
Hey, Joe.
I'm just reading. I didn't read all these emails of CC outwoking you all.
Sure, we'll
Jesus
get more of it
Christ.
on the show.
Joe's gonna say something today, isn't he?
Oh, God.
Yep.
Have you guys ever been to a Bahama Breeze? It is delightful.
Sure have.
This paternity leave is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Happy
you're,
hour.
You're considering a third. It's nice to hear.
I have to figure out a way to reconnect with
So,
his uterus. But yeah,
Schna-
we're thinking about it.
Schnars, I take back everything I said about Skype. I am now able to. I don't know if you can pull up the live stream, but I'm now able to put myself directly in the middle of you guys, like I'm Zordon or something, or like
Nice.
like in the screen and Power Rangers
Is my
when they all join up, but they show them in like 4-way split screen, and it's just like, go.
Mm-hmm.
Eric's like my 7-year-old, whereas if she doesn't like the discussion we're having, she'll just jump in with a different like topic, like mid.
I'm gonna be
sentence of
honest with
somebody
you,
else.
Joe. I have absolutely no idea what you were talking about.
Yeah,
Zero.
obviously.
CZ, how you doing?
Oh, I'm fine.
You
Is
missed
this
it.
sounding better?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it does
Sound great.
actually.
Good.
What do
Joe's
we
Joe's
sound?
already commented on your level of wokeness versus everybody else's level of wokeness. So
I haven't read the emails. I just see that you were poking the bear in some way.
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, all I was
No,
literally just
We had
saying
settled
was
it.
big.
We had settled it, and it was fine. And then Schnars came in and repoked it, and that's when I was like, "What?"
It looks like Eric said before we cured racism at some point in his email chain. I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
All right, this will be fun. Okay, I'm ready to go. I have a couple topics for the start. I'll surprise you guys, but then we'll get into things. We'll get into things pretty quickly. I'm very excited, John. We have a brand new, never before used celebrity bumper tonight,
ooh,
and we have at least
What
like,
are we going to talk trailers? Because I definitely want to talk about Midsummer or whatever the hell that was.
I'll add it to my.
I haven't watched it yet, so
Oh, you guys didn't get. I got it before mine.
I mean,
It looks
I've seen
awesome.
the commercial.
Is that the one that looks like the Wicker Man?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen it before. I didn't get it on this movie though.
We have new bumpers, John, thanks to listener Jason, who went out to some conventions.
all right.
So there you go.
And if you don't forget, if you want me to talk about seeing this movie with a patron, you know,
Oh,
happy to
yeah.
do that as
jeez.
well.
So much going on. Okay, huh?
Eric's like, God, I gotta rewrite this entire.
We should mention too for people listening that if you would like to get us bumpers at a convention, we will send you a shirt.
Or if you would like to take us to free screenings of films, super into that too. So
Did I send Jason the shirt? Whoever got us today's?
Well, we did when he got these. Like it's weird. I think he found a bunch he hadn't sent me,
Ah, okay. These are from a while ago.
but he's
Got it.
getting ready to go to another one, and he's got a list. And I told him Joe we'd send him one of the new ones, the new shirts. So
I'm pretty sure that's what I sent him last time. But
he has the same memento
No, we
disease
just
you
did
have
those
for.
no,
on
we just did
Skype.
the comic ones with just the text logo on it.
okay. Because he's constantly sniffing the other one's ass, and I'm like, what difference could there be?
Oh, the memento disease.
Yeah.
All right,
Maybe he wants to know what the other dog ate recently.
we're recording. Let's do it.
Did just have her anal glands extracted.
Welcome to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I will be your host for this evening, where I will try not to cough too much as we discuss Jordan Peele's Us. Jordan,
Us.
the number one
Us?
movie in America, John. It's not very often we get to do that.
It's true.
It's pretty exciting. Joining me tonight, first up from Hotlanta, Georgia, please welcome BGH's president of the book club. She likes books, y'all. Please welcome CC to the show.
Hello.
Oh, you almost didn't unmute for a second. I caught that. You did, but you almost didn't.
Oh no, I've unmuted myself, but it's going back to being robot-y, so sorry.
That's okay.
But yes, I was unmuted.
Well, you still sound great.
Thank you.
Next up on the show, coming to us from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Hi.
Next, from Chicago, Illinois, he's got a sick like lens flare across his webcam right now, like he's in a J.J. Abrams movie. No, don't get rid
Yeah,
of it, Joe.
I don't know how to get rid of this.
No, I love
Every
it.
week.
I love it. He likes to drink. Something tells me he's got a few in him tonight already. Please welcome Joe to the show.
Is that better? Is this better?
Much.
No, I don't
It's
like
good,
that.
guys. It hurts. It hurts my eyes.
You look like one of the tethered.
Yeah. Oh, spoiler alert. Hey everybody, how we doing?
Delightful, Joe. I'm very excited.
Thanks.
Next up on the show, he kept it on the rails last week, folks. When I had to bow out last minute due to illness, which I still have, as you can hear, from Manhattan, New York City, the business manager at BloodyGoHorror.com. Basically, that means he's the sugar daddy. If you need money, go talk to Daddy. Please welcome Schnarch to the show.
Hello, Eric.
Daddy Schnarch.
That went
Bucks.
some weird places right
Yeah,
at
I
the
don't-
end there,
I
and I was like
I'm
not sure how to handle it, but here we are.
I'm fine with it.
Daddy, I want a t-shirt. Can I get Daddy? Daddy, I need a new microphone for our podcast, Daddy.
John.
I need a drink.
John, what's going on with Duke? I keep hearing about Duke lately.
Well, there's the basketball tournament going on. Do you know how badly I wanted to just derail the podcast right off into a March Madness conversation last week?
I wanted it so bad. Are you going down to Duke for the no collusion parade that they're having later this week? You gonna be there for that?
Why does Duke gotta be the
Slash-
pro Donald Trump?
It's
thing
like
as well? I mean,
slash. It's like slash cross burning slash cookout. So that's fun.
It's- I mean,
So
Jesus.
the joke is, Joe, that I got my master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania, where our fine president is also an alumnus. So you could have made so many other jokes there. Here we are.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, here we are, learning new things.
Great.
Topical.
So yeah, we're here tonight to talk about Us. This is a highly anticipated horror movie. Did gangbusters at the box office this week. So we're gonna get to that in a little bit. First up, John, bunch of
Yes.
horror news this week.
Whew. You haven't told us what any of these things are going to be, so I can't wait to respond in real time.
Well, because I know you
Rattle
don't,
them off, John. Let's go.
because I know you don't keep up with any of this stuff, John. So that's why I kind of just wanted to get some like unvarnished opinions here. John, do you remember Blum?
Yeah.
Jason Blum.
Remember, he helped produce Us.
He's had a hell of a few years here, which is great for him because he seems like he needs more money. So that's great. I'm excited for him.
Yo, can't it just be about doing good things for horror fans?
John, did you watch this movie,
Alright.
John? No, it can't be. Time to rise
Blood.
up. So John, Blum headline: Blum found a lady.
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
The Craft being remade, written and directed by Zoe Lister-Jones, who I did not know was a director, and now I know that because I only
I
watched,
didn't know she was a lady.
because I only watch the
Nice.
movies.
I did.
I only
didn't
watch the
know.
movies we do on the show, John. So it's like when we see a Tilda Swinton movie, and I'm like, hey guys, did you know that Tilda Swinton is an amazing actress? Because I never
Yeah.
see any other movies.
Yeah. So where should I know Zoe Lister-Jones? Like,
Okay,
does
he-
she do other horror movies?
I literally have no idea. She's an actress. I knew her from being an actress. Did you ever watch The New Girl?
No.
Okay,
Did you ever watch Life in Pieces?
I guarantee you
Yeah.
not.
No.
Yeah.
She's so good on that. I love her so much. I'm so excited about this. I think
She's-
she's gonna nail it.
She's really
I-
funny. She's really
She's hilarious.
She
It
was
also-
on Whitney too. If you watched Whitney,
funny.
No. You guys are just naming shows now.
But
Mm.
I think like it's just interesting. Like also this whole thing about the Craft being remade kicked off like just a bad take-a-thon on Twitter this week, which honestly was getting a little unbearable and is still happening as we speak. But
Wait,
d-
why? Like, who is there just
Uh,
like that much love for the craft?
I don't know.
I mean, I love The Craft. I mean, I didn't know that
No,
it was
I-
being remade, but
I love the Craft
Okay.
too, and actually, like it seems like a movie. Especially you get a woman to write and direct it. Like this thing could be hugely relevant to today with an
Yeah, for sure.
with an update. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
that's
yeah,
when I
the
feel
movie's
like-
also over 20 years old. Like, it's
Yeah.
I mean,
we're
it's an
like
older
in
movie.
we're in remake
But
territory.
that's when I
Yeah.
feel like a remake could actually be something interesting, right? When the cultural soup exists now to update something and have it be even like more relevant and impactful, right? Than it was at the time. Than it already was at the time.
It's like very 90s too. Like it
Yeah,
definitely you watch it, you feel like you're watching a movie from the
I think
90s.
it's
like
just-
it's not
I
timeless in
I
any
think
What
it's
way.
did
this
it feel
attitude
like
of
when you
like-
watched it at the time?
Oh,
Did-
John, the tinglings and the teenage urges that were flowing through me. I
There
can't.
you go.
I don't want to get
Alright.
into it.
I think that's called witchcraft.
It was light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Let's move on.
Oh,
The 1-2 punches with these two, I'll tell you.
I mean, I think
you you lobbed that one in there, Cece. I'm
I
so-
I just thought he might need some help, getting back on track from all of his Bahama Breeze
Oh,
situations.
such a great place.
John, I think it's like twofold. I think it's like people still have this just attitude of why remakes always ever don't remake anything, and this other attitude that like I've actually like oddly it's funny how in the amount of time we've been doing the show how far I've come around on this. It's partly because typically when they do remakes now they tend to do it right. Like look at Halloween.
Yeah.
They got somebody who loves Halloween. They paid respect to the original, right? It's
not
not
a
like
remake.
well, okay, sure. But like I think but my point is I think when fans still have knee-jerk reactions over remakes, they think of stuff like The Fog, right? Or some bullshit where they didn't care about the original. It really literally was just like they wanted the name to slap on something. Whereas like now there's just so much potential I think in remaking stuff like that. Also, I think like and this doesn't get talked about I think enough in the hot takes happening, John, but like the thing of saying why remake this movie? It's good the way it is, blah blah blah, is actually I think like a little bit of horror gatekeeping in a kind of shitty way. Like okay, sure, I can go back and watch a 70s movie. Let's say I'm a kid, right? I can go back and watch a 70s horror movie and get something out of it, absolutely. But to say that it couldn't be made better for that person by updating it and making it more culturally relevant to them now while still working with the same themes, right? Like to say that that's not a
Oh,
possibility, I think is kind of crazy.
The flip side is like, would you rather Blumhouse hire Zoe Lister-Jones to make a movie that's essentially a Craft remake, but then not call it The Craft and like not kind of like recognize that, like whatever. Yes,
Well, and the
I
other
agree.
point made is like how much insane original, like to complain about a remake being made on the weekend that friggin' Us gets released in theaters and murders everything is like literally Us is
Yeah.
proof that new original horror is being made, and it's being made partially on the backs of the money that stuff like Halloween makes, right? In this case,
Or the
Yeah.
Craft remake
Sure.
is gonna make.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it all boils down to. If you want to keep seeing fun horror movies in movie theaters, you support horror movies in movie
I
theaters.
mean, I also
just
think-
so people will make them.
I also think, as we've discussed, like I think becoming a parent helps like round the soften the edges of the chip on the shoulder a little bit. Once you hashtag get a daughter, it's like I can't find it in me to get worked up about the Craft remake.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
really did have thoughts about this. Are we gonna go
Yeah.
this deep on every news story? How
No,
many
this
of these
was the
do you
big
have?
one. John, listen, how much discussion has there been on our Slack about Blum and ladies and Blum finding ladies? There's been a lot of
True.
discussion, so I wanted to bring it up.
Well, it was a dumb thing that he said, just to be clear.
Oh, of course. But he's trying to do better,
There you go.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So there it is. Really quickly, John, I just thought this might be news. Did you hear about this Jim Jarmusch movie?
No.
Coming this July, The Dead Don't Die is a zombie movie. It's out June 14th via Focus Features. This is a zombie movie written and directed by Jim Jarmusch. It stars. You are not ready for this cast I'm about to give you, John.
I'm gonna lay down. Just go ahead. You start reading it.
Iggy Pop,
Yep.
RZA.
I think Jim Jarmusch has been in a bunch of, Iggy Pop, and they've collaborated.
Wait, what is this? Back up. I didn't hear
It's
any. I
a-
just heard Iggy Pop.
It's a
She
Jim.
heard you were talking and stopped listening. And
It's a zombie.
Boring. This is boring.
It's a zombie movie from Jim Jarmusch.
Okay.
well, he just,
Okay.
I mean, he did the
Hey,
the
John.
vampire movie, right?
John, can I read the cast list?
Love. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Iggy Pop, RZA, Joe, RZA.
I just read his book. It is insane delve into the mind of a lunatic.
Tom Waits, Bill Murray, Adam Driver, Tilda Swinton, Chloe Sevigny, Steve
70s.
Buscemi. It just keeps getting better. Danny Glover, Joe's favorite actor, Caleb Landry Jones,
Oh,
Um,
yes.
Rosie
Okay.
As main character, hopefully.
Rosie Perez, Sarah Driver, and Carol Kane.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
What do you even
I'm
do
looking
with
at
all?
this now.
I also, now that I know, now that I've seen Tilda Swinton in Suspiria, I like to think that she's in a lot of movies in disguise as other people. So I like to think this cast list came out and all the other actors went panicked and were like, "Oh my god, who was she?" Because she wasn't there on the set, you know.
It's funny because a lot of those folks have been in other Jarmusch movies, so this is almost like a greatest hits now. I feel like he's doing so.
I don't know anything about him, John, or his movies, but I know you like him, so I wanted to.
You
bring that
saw
to the
Only
table.
Lovers Left Alive, right? Did we
Yeah.
do that for the
Oh,
show?
okay, that was
Yeah.
that was Tilda Swinton, right? Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. It's
All
pretty much just the cast of Coffee and Cigarettes doing an actual movie now.
Joe, you had a trailer.
Saw
you
that in the theater.
Joe,
Loved
you had a
it.
trailer you wanted to talk about.
Oh, this is the first time I saw it. What is it, Midsummer? It's from
think
what's
it's-
his name?
I think it's better if you say it in a German accent.
Midsummer.
Yeah.
Sommer. I think there's umlauts in there. I don't know. I had not seen this. Maybe it had been flown around Slack and I had completely missed it. But it's from what's his name, who did Hereditary. But
Ari Aster.
there you go. It looks very Wicker Man-ish, but I don't know. What did the quote he said in an article? It's like the Wizard of Oz for
Perverts.
perverts,
Yeah.
which
Whatever that means.
you couldn't sum me up in one sentence.
The
any
only,
better.
yeah, I feel like the only way he could have gotten you more excited is if he had said it's Disney
Yeah.
for perverts.
Yeah, exactly. It's Wizard of Oz for perverts on It's a Small World. But I don't know. I literally was sitting at the theater watching this, looking at the guy next to me. I'm like, this looks really good, right? He didn't care. But yeah. Have you guys seen it? Did anybody
Yes,
else?
I
I've
can't
seen it.
remember. I think I
Yeah.
watched it online.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I'm looking at the IMDb page, but look, whatever Ari Aster was going to be doing,
Yeah.
I'm there for it.
Did anybody
so.
else get a completely schizophrenic trailer selection before us? They just
Yes.
didn't know what to do
Yeah.
with it.
I got I mean I'm a super fan of Issa Rae, but I got the
Yes.
little trailer and I was like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That was
That was
weird.
I got Girls Trip in front of some movie that I saw last year, and I was like, okie doke.
Yeah. No, I remember
mean,
that.
it was just kind of there was no body age wise that I felt like that was pointed towards, but whatever.
Yeah, we started out with the Red Band trailer, and I don't remember what it was for, and then it was followed by Little.
Mm. As you do.
'Cause
I got Ma again, which still looks fun but ridiculous.
Yeah.
I got 45 minutes of trailers, and I don't remember anything except for Midsummer.
Midsommar.
Summer.
I'll have
Mark
to check this
Summer.
out.
John, really quick, and then we'll move on to our beer selection here tonight. You had a shout out
Mhm.
for a patron you wanted to give.
Oh yeah, huge shout out to Jamie, patron, fan of the show. She was my I was her patron, I guess. I don't know. I went with her to her company's screening of Us.
Amazing.
So yeah, it was great. Her company rented out a bunch of theaters here in Manhattan, and there were tons of employees. So huge shout out because obviously I got a free screening. I got to see it the day before it came out, so I got that kind of nerd street cred for 24 hours. And also, she just invited random internet person to
I
an
thought you were about
event.
to say random men.
No, random guy from the internet, and she had the gusto to just bring me into an employee event. Like it was like her other colleagues were there. They were very nice to me. No one looked at me askance.
Yeah, James is cool. I mean, I played some stuff on the Switch with her and her husband, who's also a patron. They're both
Yes,
patrons, John.
yeah.
It's a couple of patrons.
Listen, Jamie and I hung out. We had a very nice
Now,
time. It
here's
was
a
a lovely
question:
event.
was there alcohol served at this theater?
No, but they gave us everybody got a free popcorn and a free soda.
Okay.
Wow.
Nice.
I
It
was
was a great
wondering. I was wondering how much she risked her job by taking you out in public and feeding you drinks like a
No.
gremlin.
No,
Come on, dude. If I was drinking and watching this, like it would have been like 80% over my head. So
Dude, I had a fever, and by the time I left, I didn't know if I was the doppelganger or not.
and there you go. Yeah, so good times. Lovely experience, and huge thanks again.
Love it. Hey Joe,
Yeah, what's up, G?
Jeez.
drinking.
Yeah, man. Drinking some beers.
It's great. It's fun. It's easy to do. There's virtually no consequences to it.
No, it doesn't hurt anybody.
It's really the perfect pastime in many ways. And you have helped foster that over the years here on the show by bringing us a beer every week. So please do that. Beer guts.
Beer guts. It's that time of the week where we get a beer in our gut, and I'm very excited for this beer. Not much you need to know about us other than the fact that I have had I got 5 on it stuck in my head.
Oh my
for the
god, I
last
can't stop.
week now. And I picked a beer from the good folks at Roaring Table Brewing Company. It's a local, so I may have screwed you all over this week. Lake Zurich, Illinois, which is about 20 minutes from my house. Small little place. I love it. So I want to give them a shout out. This beer is their Catchy Hook.
Oh,
Which,
dude,
yeah.
perfect.
So the reason I picked this is because I realized a lot of our listeners, if not all of them, are not going to be able to get their hands on this. But it is a Brute IPA, which is a new style that has popped up I want to say like the last half year or so. And Sierra Nevada's put out one. A couple other breweries have, but it's still sort of in its infancy. So I'll read this. The birth of the Brute IPA, an enzyme long used to help make big imperial stouts a little easier on the palate, has found a new purpose in an emerging style of IPA. Pretty much they're using this enzyme, putting it in these IPAs, and it makes it like super dry almost. So it has almost like a champagne quality to it, still with like that sort of hot bitterness. So it's hard to describe, but it's super interesting. And this is the first one I've had, and I loved it. But I've loved everything Roaring Table has put out so far. Comes in at only about 6% alcohol, which is pretty typical from what I've seen from the other ones. But yeah, I think we'll probably see this popping up a lot more now, especially since like Sierra Nevada and like some of the bigger breweries are kind of fiddling around with this. A lot of breweries I've talked about, like New England IPAs and milkshake IPAs, those are kind of out there now. So I think this is kind of be like the next, I don't know, thing that brewers are doing. So I'm excited. I can tell from the video feed, the rest of you guys are too.
So excited.
The looks on your face. Roaringtable.com is their website. If you do happen to be in the area, I definitely suggest checking them out. It's a small little place, but they're growing, a lot over the last couple of years that they've been open, and everything they put out has been great. And I love the guys there, so definitely check them out. And yeah, that'll do it.
Very nice beer pick, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
You know what the worst thing about how catchy I Got 5 on it is like,
Oof.
I will admit I had never heard this song before this movie,
Mm.
so I don't know it. So like, I don't have any way to resolve.
Cece's offended.
Sorry, bro. I don't have any way to resolve the melody in my head, so I just know the like one line that just keeps turning over and over and won't go away.
It's
brutal.
it's a bit of a classic.
It's a
so,
great song.
I mean,
I'm not that well versed. Listen, Joe, if it wasn't Snoop Dogg or Dr. Dre in like 1993, then I wasn't listening to it.
Cece and I are much more woke than you. I get it.
Apparently.
Don't try to put yourself in CC's camp here. All right.
We're practically twins.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how we share a husband.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay.
It's more of a single white female type thing, but whatever.
All right, guys, it's time. Let's take a break and discuss us.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Got the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. John, had you heard of that song before this movie?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Oh, God.
I'm not too cool
I
to
know.
admit it. I'm just gonna. I don't know every song, Joe.
Ba-dum-bum.
John,
Yes.
you do know every word though, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good energy tonight, guys. I can feel it. It's coming through the tubes.
All of the words.
Please bring us the word of the day.
Before Joe joined, Eric warned me that I might have to step in for him if his voice was starting to break up, and I was like, dude, that is not a great idea. Today's word, Eric, is tether. Tether. Tether.
Not bad.
All right. Two definitions. I'll give you three. Two verb definitions. One, tie an animal, they say in parentheses, with a rope or chain so as to restrict its movement. Number two, this is a little more modern, use a smartphone in order to connect a computer or other device to the internet.
That's true.
And then as a noun, it can be used just as as the name for the rope or chain with which an animal is tied to restrict its movement. Interestingly, I thought this might get Joe a little worked up. So the origin here is the Old Norse.
Ooh.
Yeah. The word I'm going to say is pronounced chother. Tother. I don't know. TJO with an accent on it.
Oh, yeah.
THR.
Sure.
And that's from the Germanic base meaning fasten.
Oh, I like it.
Mm.
I
Tether.
thought you said choder.
I kind of did. Yeah, I kind of.
Ornery.
You choder.
My Old Norse pronunciation probably needs work.
In 7th grade, I definitely called somebody a choder once.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Best,
Why not?
Best insult ever. John Schnars,
Yes.
what's going on with this movie? What's this movie about? Who made it? Who's in it?
Who doesn't know what's going on with us is really the question if you're listening to this podcast.
Apparently, white people.
I mean, I don't know. A lot of them apparently went to the movie theater. Us, the second feature film from Jordan Peele. He of Key and Peele fame, of impersonating Barack Obama fame, I guess.
Oh, you ever seen the meme based on that Barack Obama skit? Like it's the one where
Sure I
he walks
have.
through the room like acting differently to each person he meets, and then
Oh,
people
yeah,
made it a meme by just like they'll put little cards as to what he's talking to, you know?
In any event, he also directed a little film called Get Out, which we loved, America loved, the Academy of Arts and Motion Picture Sciences loved. So, I mean, this is probably as highly anticipated a film. I mean, certainly as we're going to have this year, I think, in the horror genre. But I think also when you talk about directorial voices, I mean, it's like ridiculous to say, but he's like become one of, if not the most important, creative voices we've had in the last like 3 or 4 years. I mean, it's really kind of like that from him being like a pretty famous actor already to like where he is now as a director. So that's sort of like where this movie gets dropped in. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, I'd say there's like we're gonna have to spoil the ending and get into it, but we'll wait a little bit. But just fair warning, there's a lot going on here. Stuff's gonna be flying left and right.
And I think it's worth, we can talk about, like, when this trailer came out, I think the initial reaction to the trailer, a lot of us, including myself, was wow, they really showed a lot. Like, there was concern at the time that too much of the film was given away. So there's going to be times where we're talking about something that like might seem like a spoiler, and it's not, because there's like just a lot of
Spoiler
stuff.
alert, you could see it all and not really know what's happening, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's also true. All right, so very briefly, essentially the main character is played by Lupita Nyong'o. She is the mother of a family of 4. The film actually opens with her as a child, 1986, I think, 85, 86.
86.
And we see an incident that sort of happens in 86 where she's at the Santa Cruz pier at the boardwalk there with her parents. They're kind of having just like a threesome night out, and she wanders off while the dad is playing whack-a-mole and goes into this. I think it's
By
called
the way,
shaman
has
tent.
this dad ever played whack-a-mole? Like, I don't think he knows what he's doing. Did you guys watch what he was
It
doing?
was so frustrating
It
when
was
he was just
insane.
like turning away and
He just,
letting
like-
them come out and like not even bothering. I'm like,
Yeah,
what
but
the?
wasn't he drunk or drinking? Like,
was
come on,
still
are you really on top of your
drinking.
game during that?
Still,
Well, I don't just turn away and just let them go for like 30
I
seconds.
like to think that it was another.
I
I like.
spent money on this.
Yeah,
I like-
exactly.
I like to think that it was another subtle, like Jordan Peele Easter egg, just to let you know things are just a little off. Like in this universe, nobody knows how to play whack-a-mole.
It did almost look like he was playing whack-a-mole and they were gonna digitally add the moles in later because he was just like swinging it. I don't know. In any event, he's playing whack-a-mole. She wanders off. She goes into, I think the ride at the time is called the Shaman's Tent. It's something along those lines. It's like the Shaman something, and the whole thing is like, fine, explore your future or something. But really, it's just a house of mirrors. And she wanders in, and she has this moment where she comes up behind what looks like behind another girl, and the girl turns around, and it's essentially like her own. It's like a double. It's a doppelganger. And then we sort of smash cut back to the
It
present.
also,
We
though,
realize-
because it's in a funhouse, it's unclear. Like it kind of looks like she's inside the mirror.
Yeah, it's true. And that's why she wanders up to her, because she's facing the other way as opposed to a reflection. But so so we smash cut to the present, and throughout the film they kind of cut back to the fact that even after that it was a traumatic event for her, and we come to realize she was gone for 15 minutes, and the parents sort of are discussing it, but we know that this is something that has like impacted her life, and when we meet the family, they're now going back to the house that she used to go to as a child that is near the Santa Cruz. It's like they've sort of inherited it from her parents, presumably, although they don't really get into the details. So she's there with her husband, their 2 kids, and they go to the beach. There's like some stuff that happens at the beach, but ultimately the movie kind of kicks off the action where they're in their house, they're getting ready to go to bed, and they see another basically group of people, another family standing in their driveway, and they quickly sort of come to realize that it's essentially a mirror image of themselves, and they actually then interact with them because this mirror image of themselves attacks them and holds them hostage in the house. We get sort of a fairly long monologue by Nwongo's alter ego, who's called Red. All of them are they're both, all of the actors are playing dual parts here, and essentially Red explains that they are tethered, they are the tethered. They were created and lived in an underground lab lair, something along
Is
those
all
lines.
is all of that dumped in the beginning?
Well, yeah, and I also
no.
didn't
I
even
can't.
mention the film opens. I mean, we should get to it. Like the film opens with this flashback. It also opens with a commercial for Hands Across America, and it even before that opens with an interstitial, or a title card rather,
rabbits.
that explains that there are
Yes.
like miles and miles of tunnels under the earth, or under America. So you see these things, and it's so.
did-
We're all literally sitting on top of one right now.
It was kind of weird. I
I
felt
mean,
like
I probably am
I
actually.
felt
but-
like the title card was not necessary. Like, with how out there and weird this movie is, like, why even bother explaining there's
Well, I
tunnels?
do think it was meant to be somewhat disorienting, for the experience. I mean, we can come back to it, but in any event, that kind of kicks off the movie, and so you realize there's some type of incident. All of the and this family is being attacked by essentially mirror copies of themselves. And that kicks off this action of this family essentially trying to survive a home invasion, but in this broader context of this almost like sci-fi era or sci-fi-ish takeover that's happening.
Sci-fish.
Sci-fish,
This is sci-fish.
sci-fi-ish.
Sure. Sounds good. All right, Joe.
Oof. All right.
Bold
We can do
move.
this.
Going to Joe first. What'd you think of this, Joe?
I loved it. I think, like John said, we were all anticipating this a lot. And the thing I'm really excited about, and I don't want to get into spoilers yet, but like the trailer does a really good job of hiding the size of this movie. And I'll kind of leave it at that. But there's, I want to say like the first sort of twist we get about maybe 30 minutes in or so. I was really enjoying the movie before that, but then like once we kind of hit that, I was like in my head, I literally said like I freaking love this movie now. I think we'll talk about Eric. I think I'm probably on the same page as you. Like a lot of the symbolism was probably over my head, and I think a lot of the complaints I've seen of people online saying that this is like, a little sloppy and like the explanation is a bit much. But I think, and I know it might be a little ridiculous because he's only done one movie, but like I give Jordan Peele enough credit to think that like he's not being sloppy. There's just stuff there that I'm missing. Again, one movie, but I think that one movie he did was so good that I'll give him that kind of credit.
You're
or give
sort of
that
willing to,
kind of slack.
willing to give the
Yeah.
benefit of the doubt.
And even like with those questions, I still loved it. And I love the idea that, maybe stuff wasn't over the top of my head and maybe he's just leaving that for your interpretation. Like, not everything needs to be explained 100%. So yeah, I mean, we'll get more into it like when we talk about spoilers, but I really enjoy this.
CC.
Casey or CC?
CC.
Yeah.
CC.
Sorry. The garage door's opening on my end, so I wasn't sure if you were talking to me. My doppelganger's intruding my household. So I was super, super anticipating this movie and tried very hard not to read any spoilers or really watch any trailers outside of that like initial one we got. And I don't really want to give anything away before we really get talking to it, but I definitely think that Jordan Peele deserves all the praise that he's getting. I think that he has definitely perfected his style of storytelling and just ultimately playing the long game in general. I think that he is very good at planning either symbols or tells or just things in general that are going to come into play later on in a story. And to do that with such like tact and such like subliminal ease, it takes a lot of talent while still leaving this like enormous story. And yeah, I think it's also one of those movies that I really liked when I enjoyed it, but the further away I get from it, the more I enjoy it and the more I can't stop thinking about it. And just kind of feeling that dread build even a week after seeing it is super impressive to me.
Casey.
I'm going to go against everybody and say I loved it. No. Twist! No, I really love this movie, and it was, I mean, CC and Joe covered just about everything that I loved about it, too. There was just so much going into it. I was super overhyped in this movie. I managed to stay away from the trailers for a good chunk because this has gotten a heavy media blast, I think. I did a good job with that, and it fully lived up to the hype. That's what I loved about it. And I think the other thing I loved about this movie, and we'll get into the details why later, but like from that very first trailer, and Eric is talking about some people thought they, were afraid he gave away too much and stuff like that. I was a little worried about that, but then it also had my gears turning, thinking, what the hell is he going to do with this? How is this going to work out? And trying to speculate and everything. And you get to the end of this movie, and it's absolutely nothing that I would have thought of. So that, it still managed to be surprising with as much as they did show you early on. So
well, it's funny. I forgot that was people like had beef with that. The movie's called Us. Like, you can't call the movie Us if you're not gonna like at least tip that hand a little bit in the trailer. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you would have had to call it something else, I think.
But I think they did like
Them.
I think he did such a good job of not spoiling what you actually get out of this.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Well, and I also trusted that there was enough going on under the surface that was just a thing that he was, like that wasn't crucial.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That as much as he did show us and everything, by the time you get to the end of this, the end product, it's just nothing that I could have imagined. So it was
like
really impressive storytelling.
What the hell would you have shown in the trailer?
Slow down, Joe.
It showed like the doppelgangers. Like,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just like all the family walking around,
yeah, like,
riding in the
going
car.
on vacation. Something
just-
bad
They're
happens.
gonna roll the video
Us.
for put 5 on, or I
Yeah.
got 5 on it.
This movie is really fantastic. I agree with Cece. I think it deserves all the praise it's getting. I think there's certainly some, as Casey might say, some nits you could pick here and there that we can talk about. But I think, like, and John, you said,
Reject it. There are
John-
no nits.
John,
I
you,
was gonna say I'm with John. There are none.
John, you talk about Jordan Peele being like a creative force in horror, like one of the best last few years. He makes another movie like this, and it goes beyond that. I think at that point we're talking like.
Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say people are already comparing him to like Hitchcock and
I mean-
Kubrick, and I think that that's true. Like he has very much established his style, his
Forget
voice.
about the fact that if you talk about the mainstream success he's having, his 2 movies in a row like this is, I feel like, almost like unprecedented on some level.
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
$70 million opening weekend is bananas ass crazy.
And just can we also talk about real quick that like him having his own production company and having like full creative like
Yeah.
agency over his movies wholly makes a difference. Like
Yeah.
I am
Yes.
constantly blown
Well, it's
away
just
by that.
more, it's more proof bearing out the Blumhouse model of, minimal, like I'm sure Blumhouse exerts some kind of oversight, but making the risks money-wise low so that you can let artists like go wild, you know what I mean? But I think what's what's even more impressive about how well this movie works, how successful it was, is the fact that like it's insane. This movie's insane. Like if we get one thing across tonight, I want it to be that this movie is insane. Like it's
Like if you
It's-
wrote it down as a premise, people
Well,
would be like, "What?"
not only the premise, but like just the tone. It's like
Yeah.
it's at times scary, and then in the middle of scaring the shit out of you is like so over the top funny that it almost takes you out of it, but yet he's somehow able to like pull you back in and then scare you around the next turn. It's like I have never seen a movie with such overt comedy in it that actually still manages to be really tense and scary.
Well, yeah,
it's
we
actually
didn't
nuts.
mention Tim Heidecker's in this, and
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah.
dude can't.
Is
not
he?
be-
So okay, so is he the blonde dude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does
the
he
husband.
does he not look like one of the Murray brothers from the 80s? Like doesn't he look like he's just like remember like all the Murray brothers, they were in like One Crazy Summer and stuff? I feel like he just could like sidle into one of those movies and just be one of those dudes.
I don't know. Was
I mean,
Eddie
Um,
Murray brother in One Crazy Summer?
Are you being racist
But-
against white people right now?
I just
The
appreciate
Bill Murray, John. Jesus
yes, I'm
Christ.
familiar.
Oh
Bill
my God.
Murray was like 40 when One Crazy Summer came out.
Anyway, my point, like the tone is nuts, and the fact that so like he's basically making on one hand what in some ways is like a popcorn horror flick. There is all this home invasion stuff. There's chase sequences. There's gore like crazy. There's violence, and he's also making like these art house horror movies at the same time with all this like really loaded social commentary stuff under the surface, and he's somehow managing to juggle all this stuff, please horror fans, and at the same time bring in a mainstream crowd. Like it's almost witchcraft, you know what I mean? Like when you think of
Mhm.
really, this thing is so much more ambitious than Get Out was, but at the same time you can see how he built on sort of the things that he did in that movie and sort of amped them up. If I have any complaints, I feel like the explanation for ultimately it doesn't matter. Like ultimately I love this movie, but I just have to say it that like while watching the movie I had a lot of questions about what the hell was going on with these people. Like I think that they, even though it's a fairly long monologue, it's a little weirdly vague, I think. And I also that monologue feels weird at the point that it hits in the movie because it's long.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah, oh, yeah.
long. You're seeing the villains close up with no, you know what I mean? Like all the mystique of the villains kind of disappears for a while.
Well, and she's
Um,
using a weird voice.
I didn't know what to
not-
make of it, to be honest.
Well-
The fascinating thing is that, and that's and my last point, and then we'll move on. Like, but why this movie is so crazy is that once the twist happens, it recontextualizes everything in a way that now that scene is almost one of my favorite scenes in the movie. But like
Mhm.
while I was in it, I just like didn't know what to make of it. But holy shit, like it's one of the few twists I've seen where it's like the possibilities for every scene being reinterpreted now is almost endless, like because it changes the entire world, and it makes it scarier. That's what's kind of cool about it. It makes it scarier in hindsight in your head, thinking back on it, than it necessarily was at the time, because of the different motivations you kind of can
Well,
like,
there's-
see
yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, and I think that that's the important part. Like, I mean, there's so many movies that try to do that. They're like, oh, well, the how doesn't, or like, the how or the actual why of the movie doesn't really matter. And in this instance, it's really well done. Like, it's shown that that's not anybody's motivation, that it can change throughout. It's something that's not tangible. So it creates this momentum in the plot that kind of keeps you guessing while creeping you out at the same time.
Right.
Eric, I knew you were very excited to talk about this movie because you skipped over my
Oh, sorry.
opinion.
I was excited. What did you think, John?
There's not many times where I would be that upset to not get my opinion, but like I feel like everybody else. I feel really, really strongly about this movie. I mean, obviously, I love the movie. There's like, I'm trying to think of like other ways to kind of position it, but in a lot of ways, I think what Cece said really resonates with me as well. Like the experience of watching this movie is almost overwhelming because there is so much going on. I mean, there's all the stuff we've already talked about. There's also like so many horror references
Yeah, it's
that
crazy.
are going on. So many films that he's directly referencing. There's the first sequence, the very first shot of the film. There are VHS tapes
What
that are
tape, John?
signaling. Well, the one that obviously everyone remembers is Chud.
Chud. Did you catch his story behind that in the interview?
Yeah,
That
I
his
did.
first girlfriend's dad directed Chud.
But it's also
Oh.
super relevant for the film. Like that actually reveals
Yeah, okay,
a
you
ton
know what?
about what's going
That's
on.
hilarious. I did not make that connection, John, but yes,
Yeah. No, and so-
cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
There you go. And so like this movie it has so many layers. It's almost exhausting to sort of experience that certainly that first time. And and to Cece's point, when I walked out, I was like, wow, that was awesome. Like I really enjoyed watching that. In subsequent days, I can't stop thinking about it.
Oh, yeah,
I literally,
no.
I was joking somewhat to y'all that I woke up in the middle of the night the other day. I've been sick. I've had a fever as well. Like, but I woke up in the middle of the night and I was thinking about us when I woke up. It was just like super weird.
No, I think it's one of those things that, and much like Get Out, I think it like gets into your head and it's tough to get out.
It sits with you, and I think there's the sort of artistry, the mastery of the craft that Peele brings to it, the layers that it lends itself to, not just repeated viewings, which I haven't even had an opportunity obviously to see it again, but to really intense contemplation and discussion. There's like a whole cottage industry on the internet right now of
Oh my
websites
God,
trying
dude.
to explain different parts of this movie. And but it's because it lends itself to that. And it's the kind of thing, I mean, I studied literature in college. Like that's what books are about. Like it's about like,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, I mean, it's not about the experience of watching the movie. It's about the experience of having the conversation and connecting afterwards. And like that's what art is supposed to do in general. That's the sole purpose of art.
He's
Well-
really good at creating like loaded imagery and themes, not overtly explaining them and kind of leaving the room for the audience to sort of like fill
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
their own interpretation.
no, and that's where you've seen a lot of stuff on the web of like, this is the meaning of us, or this is the meaning. And look, people are circling around some other things. And
This is us.
yeah, Joe, there we go. I knew you were waiting for it. So, but and obviously Jordan Peele's out talking about what he thinks it means. But at the end of the day, I mean, Cece, like to your point, the movie itself is really good, and so that matters. And then whether everybody agrees, like just the fact that everyone's talking about it and able to bring so much of their own personal lives and unpack this movie in different ways is just, it's a testament
I
to
mean,
like really what an achievement
It also
is.
feels like something you look at like somebody like George Romero's stuff and the way that subsequent generations have recontextualized his movies. Like this is a thing that will, I think, remain ripe for discussion for like decades.
Yeah.
How did Jamie feel about it, John?
I think she was pretty into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if like the lights came up and she turns and she's like, "Well, that was fucking garbage." Huh?
We haven't even talked about like the insane, and again, like this movie's insane, use of music in this movie.
Oh,
Dude,
Yes.
can I just say that any contemporary music that's turned into like classical music
my
is my
God.
jam.
It's
I
so
could
That
good.
scene
Like,
where she's dancing to that, like I could just listen to that
Yeah.
over and over and over
I want
again.
that to end. I'm like, I've listened to that version probably 100 times on
Yeah.
Spotify since. And for whatever reason, if you ask Spotify or Echo to play, I got 5 on it. That's the version.
That's
by
awesome.
Yes,
default.
that's
that's
awesome.
amazing.
There's
Oh,
a
it's
there's
so
a there's a
amazing.
hilarious like irony symmetry there, Joe, of you asking your like home bot to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the other scene though, I think that gets overshadowed by the use of "I Got 5" on it is the murder scene where "Fuck the Police" is like blaring. I mean,
So-
that's insane. Like that, I can't. It's just so crazy the way that it just like colors that whole scene.
I
Yeah.
love the way that that's playing, and literally the thing that's been in the back of your mind for the last 15 minutes is like, where the fuck are the police? Because
Well,
they caught
yeah.
them like
Yeah.
half an hour
That's
ago.
the longest 15 minutes
Yeah.
ever.
Well, they
That scene
but
too.
you realize why
Yeah,
the police
I mean,
aren't
you
That
know
there,
why
scene-
that happens,
that-
but like,
But by that point, you don't know.
Yeah, you're
right.
right.
While you're going through, you don't know, but that scene is such a hugely pivotal moment because it's when
Oh.
it's when his wider ambition for the story is revealed because you realize there's something happening on like a global level.
Well, that's
And you
Go ahead.
don't know that anybody else has doppelgangers until that exact moment when someone just gets like murder stabbed.
Well,
mm.
and that was the moment you were talking about, right, Joe? That
Yeah.
it made you sit. I mean, it did me too because I had. That's what really got me where it separates itself from the trailer too, because that's when he veers off from anything that you think he's going to set up. I had no
Exactly.
idea that was coming, and then when they come out of the bathroom with the girls standing upstairs, my literal reaction was, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
Because you don't know, you're not expecting it. It's so
Yeah.
good, it's well crafted.
And again, like
So I guess we're kind of getting into spoilers now, but like we get to Tim Heidecker's house. We see like a little interaction between him and his wife, and then we discover that there's doppelgangers of them too. And Tim Heidecker's doppelganger, I could watch an entire
It's
movie
hilarious.
of just
Yeah.
that guy.
well, did
He
anybody else
was
notice
so good.
but how funny it is though that like the two main women doppelgangers are like terrifying. The two dude doppelgangers are hilariously dopey. Like they're literally like Frankenstein walking around like beep boop beep, and it's like there's something really funny about the way they, and it's like I can't believe it works, and somehow it does. Like any other director, any other movie, I feel like I'd be here ranting about how dumb they were, because it's really goofy. Like, and I think it's intentionally made
it is.
goofy.
I mean, don't you think
Yeah.
that like it's really well done that like obviously this movie is shot from a female point of view and like she's taking charge. It's obvious that
Yeah.
she's like her own hero and like her husband is this huge, massive, imposing guy who immediately gets disarmed and then even his doppelganger is bumbling as well, and then the white guy who is super rich and is supposed to have everything looks like, I mean,
Oh my god.
goofy in a human body. Like it's just bizarre,
That
but it's so well like handled. I loved it.
It's a
That
very it's just
shot
it's
where
a-
like I think his wife goes after the main character and like they run inside or something and Heidecker's doppelganger is just like
Yeah.
women, you know, like does like that wave like
Well, he keeps
I
doing
would-
this.
It reminded me.
I was cracking up for like 5 minutes.
It reminded
after
me
that.
of like Bill Murray in Zombieland or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but on the flip side, Elizabeth Moss is terrifying.
Well,
Yeah,
well, she's
she's
a
just terrifying.
Scientologist. I mean,
That's
yeah.
true. That's true.
But I
Um,
thought that
She's
like
working for Xena.
if we
Seen
can
you.
talk about the juxtaposition of Elizabeth Moss's characters, like her doppelganger versus 80s doppelganger or Lupita's doppelganger, like I thought that it was so aptly like planned out that like you, you have a doppelganger whose real person lives this like super intense lush life and her like shadow person is so bizarre and so terrifying, and that moment where she sees her husband, that she sees her shadow husband die and she fake cries and then starts laughing is one of the most fucked up scenes
I actually forgot about
ever.
that. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was terrifying.
Terrifying.
We should
Yeah.
talk about.
That's why, like, I find it funny. I've seen. sorry, like I've seen a lot of people complain that like this movie isn't scary, and like I don't think it's like jump scare like scary, but like
Oh yeah.
see specifically that scene, like it was creepy as hell and like super tense. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of
it's-
bullshit.
I
to
had
do
to
it,
walk
like,
Brody. I had to let her outside when we came home. I came home alone, and I had we have this weird driveway, so I have to like walk around the house. And I was like, oh my god, if I walk around the house and see someone at the end of my driveway, because people walk by our house all the time, I was like, I'm literally gonna scream. It's
No,
gonna be horrible.
listen. I think it's really
There's
creepy.
a doppelganger of Kyle out there.
I think it's really creepy.
Probably.
I feel like it's just impossible to have the discussion of this wasn't scary with people because I just think there's a lot of people out there who just don't want to let themselves be scared by or they're just like too cool to be scared by things, I think. And I just it is what it is.
There's a level of
well-
you have to meet the movie on its sort of
Exactly,
terms,
exactly.
and if you're
I-
not willing to do that, then
So
Yeah.
I think
you know,
there's
Well,
a
and I
there's a
think
s-
that-
there's
I really think that the motivation of this movie isn't to scare you. I think it's to creep you out. And I mean,
Yeah.
like we're talking about not knowing the motivation or like who's actually in charge of these, tests or like I mean, the movie starts out by saying we don't know what these tunnels are used for or why some tunnels are there. And that kind of leads you into the rest of the movie. Like you're not supposed to know these things. And so when
it's like a creeping dread.
yeah, because it's so well played that every time you start to get really scared or like you're expecting this jump scare, there's a comical moment and then you're like, well, all right, fine, now it's funny. And so you keep pushing down this fear and then you never get a release of the fear and it turns into dread and that's why you're still creeped out weeks later after the movie and that's
Well, and then I also think
impressive.
that on top of that, and we'll get to this in a second, but on top of that, the twist then I think becomes like violating in a weird way.
yeah.
Because like the things that the people and the things you thought were safe actually maybe weren't, or just like it shatters your view of everybody in the movie. You know.
Yeah.
Before
'Cause
we
you're like,
go-
who are you supposed to relate to? Who are you
Yeah.
supposed to root for at this point? And if you're trying to relate to her as a character, it's like, well, if we all have these shadow selves, which self is the actual like good self?
Well,
And
let's get to the
Yeah.
the ending in a second, but I just wanted to make sure we just talk about like how good Lupita Nyong'o is in this movie. It's
Oh,
funny
she's
because
I
like
thought
fantastic.
the whole
Phenomenal.
family.
yeah,
is
the whole
essentially-
cast is
I mean,
great,
obviously
but like
she
I
has the
mean
most work to
she
do.
kind of really gets the chance to shine. I think it's
Yeah.
one of those things, John. Like my discovery that Tilda Swinton was an amazing actress. Like I don't think I've ever seen Lupita Nyong'o in anything, and it's like you look at her IMDb.
She did win an Oscar, Eric.
I know that now, John, because I looked her up. But you look at her IMDb, and she seems like somebody who's been around for a while and done a lot of stuff. But she's only been around for like 5 years. She hasn't done a ton. It seems to me like
She's done a ton of big stuff though. Like she's in
Yeah.
the MCU as part of the
Okay,
Black
okay,
Panther
right, right,
universe.
right,
Star
She's
Wars.
in Star Wars. Like she's in like big movies now. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, and she's certainly not getting this amount of coverage in Star Wars.
I
Like
mean,
she's a fairly minor.
She's
character.
being asked to go some like crazy places in this movie. I
But
think.
her performance especially, and it's mostly because they're focused on her, the way the story's crafted and everything. But like when the Shadow family first shows up and comes into the house, you're riveted to her. You can't look away, and you're watching her stalk around that house, especially when she's doing that slow walk and the military, the sharp military turns and stuff. And when she starts talking, oh Lord,
Yeah. Well,
Confusing.
for me, the kids were so freaking
Kids
impressive.
were great, specifically
yeah.
the daughter. Like that,
Yeah.
fucking the doppelganger daughter gave me goddamn nightmares.
That's what I'm saying. Like
yeah.
those doppelganger characters, like I think for an adult who's like been in stuff, like those are like a lot of scenery chewing type of scenes. You don't ever see children doing scenery chewing type roles.
Joe,
like
Joe
yeah.
goes home and he's just like staring at his daughter with squinty
Yeah.
eyes, like, what's your
No,
deal?
She'll straight up murder my ass. I know it.
What's your
Yeah.
deal?
No, so yeah, I totally agree. I mean, look, like in a lot of ways, like one of the points I was gonna make, this is not really a spoiler. Like this movie is a family movie. Like it's about this family and it's about their survival as a family. And like for me, at least, a lot of the tension came from the fact that do they all get out of this? Like, do they all survive? Like, because you care about them, you spend a lot of time with them as a family unit in the beginning, and then the threat that comes at them obviously is themselves. It's us, But so like it's so important that they got all of them right and that they all work together that well. I mean, the husband's great too. I mean, not to like, we don't need to leave him out of it.
No,
but,
he's
yeah, he's really good.
He is really great, actually. I think, and he's again like asked to sort of do a lot of different things emotionally. I feel like.
I loved the sequence that's in the trailer where he goes outside with the baseball bat. I loved it. Like that's just like
Yeah.
a perfect like.
Oh, it's
dad
hilarious
scene.
because like he's acting all tough, and then he immediately turns around and starts running back for the house.
Yeah,
Um,
it gets
we-
smoked. Like he's the first one to basically get injured.
let's
so.
talk about the ending. So basically, we find out that everybody has a tether, or at least, I guess this part was a little unclear to me, right? Because they say they shut the program down eventually, so not everybody would have a tether, right? Like,
Well,
But
I'm
they're
assuming-
reproducing.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think
It's a
that
little-
it's
it's a little
implied that
fuzzy.
most everyone probably does at this point.
it's a little fuzzy,
Yeah.
but basically, like we're in apocalyptic levels of situations where everybody's dead, or most people are dead. They're still trying to outrun their doppelgangers. They end up killing some of them. Some of them come back. They have to kill the white family's doppelgangers. Like a whole thing going through
Yeah.
the night.
All of this is like more or less explained in that monologue too, because the Lupita Nyong'o red doppelganger even says we needed to make a statement. She says
Yeah.
we needed to make a statement or something along those lines. And so you don't know what the hell she's talking about at the time, but yeah, to your point, once you realize it's like, oh, okay.
So
And you start to see them doing the Hands Across America. Sorry, I know, Eric, you want to get in? So.
No, it's fine. I want to get through the ending because we're running late here. But they end up back to the beach and the boardwalk. I really enjoyed how a lot of the finale was shot in broad daylight. It's something Peele mentions in his interview, but just kind of the way it sort of subverts like expectations for that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
the Nyong'o ends up going down, or she goes down, right, and she gets
Mhm.
down into the tunnels and sort of has this final confrontation, I guess, with the
Well, she has to go down because basically her son gets taken
That's
by
right.
her doppelganger.
That's right,
and
that's
so
right.
she gets lured back down to
she
the.
goes down, has this final kind of confrontation with Red. This really is where I think Peele shines visually the most in the movie. There's so much thought put into this stuff, it's almost like Black Swan-esque kind of dancing situation that's like playing out with the I got 5 on it in the background. It's just all very well constructed. She kills her. They escape. I believe everybody in the family survives. Is that right?
Yeah, they do.
Um,
They drive off in an ambulance.
And as they're driving away, so this part was a little confusing to me at first, and I actually didn't understand it until I read later. But
Well, the reveal is done in the basement.
no, it's not. The reveal is done when they're driving away later, and she's thinking it's just
I
like
mean, to be honest, I thought he showed his cards way, way too early, and he showed his cards
I had no
like in the
idea.
beginning of the movie.
I had no idea.
Well, yes, the twist is like pretty guessable, especially in retrospect, I think. But no, like the confrontation and conversation that they have in the basement, like more
Yeah,
or less
she said
reveals
she
everything.
left me there.
Yeah.
I didn't. I literally pieced none of this
Oh yeah,
together.
she said. I mean, Red says you took me and left me down here, knowing I was experiencing what you got away from. So like, it's very much laid out before the scene with her son.
But the scene where she's in the car though, and she's giving this flashback, like this is where they overtly show it to
That's
you.
where they show the mechanics.
That's where they drive it home. Yeah.
Yeah, because like they literally have specifically up until that point always cut away in the flashback to when they're staring face to face. And this is when you finally see the moment where she grabs her, she switches her out, she handcuffs her to the bed, takes her clothes, goes back. And so now all this stuff starts to make sense, right? Like why the parents didn't think she was the same. And there's actually like a reference that I think now makes sense in retrospect where she doesn't dance anymore. The girl's like, do you ever
Oh,
miss
yeah.
dancing
She
or
says
whatever?
she hurt her leg when she was 14.
Right. And like, it would kind of make sense because she wasn't really the dancer, whereas the other girl was, and the other girl's dancing ended up becoming really important. The girl that ended up underground was a dancer before they put her underground.
I mean, if she was not the type of dancer that the Shadow Addie becomes, because the whole reason Shadow Addie starts dancing is because the therapist tells her parents she doesn't speak, so don't worry about her not speaking. She needs to learn to express herself in other ways, and so they push her into dancing.
But the
Yeah.
little girl who who got locked down underground did know how to dance though, because isn't that what like
No,
inspired
they showed
the
her
people?
dancing, but it was like
That was
She was
just because
dancing
she was the
backwards.
tether.
It was
was
like-
because
it was
she
just
the,
yeah.
Weird creepy tether dancing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so basically, at whatever point you put this together, if it's me, it's after the movie's over. But
Is after you read 4 articles on
But-
the internet.
the person that we've been following this whole movie, right? That's like the emotional center of the movie, the person you're rooting for. This is basically a tethered person who like actively locked a quote unquote like normal person in this underground, stole her life, and then has lived out her whole life this way with this fear that she might like the karma might come back someday, right? And now what I think is like just so strong about this movie is the way that it literally changes everything in the movie. Like more so than even something like The Sixth Sense, which is crazy to say, right? Because that's a dude who's dead the whole time. But like
what?
the,
It's
now,
a similar,
but
it's
now
a
you
similar
think
effect
back.
for sure.
Now
though.
you think back to that monologue, and you're like, they know each other. They knew each other.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
met before, right? So like now that conversation is chilling, because, and to me, like the most unsettling part of the whole thing is seeing the fact that the girl seeing what the girl who was normal turned into
Mhm.
by being put in that situation. That part to me is what's chilling, because before that, you just think of it's like a movie monster. It's like, oh, she's weird because she's a movie monster and she lives underground, whatever. But then it
But
takes
she
this,
was one of us.
it takes this like really creepy, to me, like unnerving tone to it once you know that she was sort of like turned into that. Like the idea of putting a normal kid down there is like heartbreaking, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like no one speaks, no one like
Yeah.
has any cognitive abilities.
Well, they do,
Oh,
but
man.
they're very. I mean, look, they execute like a pretty massive takeover of, so they're not like. It's weird. Look, like, this is actually to me one of the most interesting sort of things. Like, what are we meant to like take? Like, there's the whole thing of like, what are the tethered? Because I think one of the other big questions is like, how much are we supposed to read it as like a real like thing that happens versus like almost like an allegory,
Like a metaphor.
where
yeah.
the
Yeah,
whole movie
totally.
is that, right? Because
I
and,
think
like,
you have to approach it in that way, at least a little, just to let some of this stuff kind of slide by. I feel like.
yeah, but the whole thing around like who are the tethered, what how were they created, how are they treated, what are they meant to stand in for? The thing that's that you sort of touch on, but it's like called out pretty explicitly in the film, is that the evil, like the red, or not red, I guess Addie, the one who lives above in the film, who we learn is actually the tethered version, but she's the real one now, and she, and they've switched places, but there's this whole dialogue they have about how they were special, like they were different, and the reality is like the one who escaped is the one who was special. She's the one who had a level of cognitive ability that was big enough to execute this like kidnapping and replacement, and also go live above and essentially transition into basically being a fully normal adjusted human who has a family. And on the flip side, then you have this girl who is living above, and a more or less normal child at that age gets put below. Notice she's the only one who can talk. And so she becomes this like leader. Now, whether her being down there with the ability to talk was the thing that catalyzed the rest of them
Right.
to get to a place where they could execute this mass escape and take over, or if like they were all capable already, but she essentially is their leader. Like she's the
Yeah.
one who organizes the whole thing. So I don't know, like
Well,
I still haven't like fully even unpacked a lot of this
Well-
stuff,
and
because it's so
CC, you mentioned
light.
too, like CC, you mentioned one of the interesting things that it does is bring up all these issues of like who you relate to, because really now on some level you can relate to both of them. Like even though
Right.
that was the little girl, she's still a terrifying murderer now. And
Yeah,
then
well,
the
it's
normal
I mean, they're
person,
both evil,
Sure,
but
yeah.
I
Right.
mean, I think that it's really interesting, and with John saying like, is it supposed to be an allegory? I mean, like obviously, Jordan's talked about how it's a movie about classism, and I mean, it can really be boiled down into the haves versus the have-nots, and they talk about how obviously both Addies are human, like they, by all outward appearances, are human. one apparently has a soul and the other one doesn't. But like, who exactly is to say the one with a soul is the good Addie and the one without a soul is the bad? Because technically they're reversed by the time the end of the movie happens.
Well, and also like the accusation that a human doesn't have a soul is like something that was said about other humans
Sure,
historically. You know,
right.
like
Yeah,
this is where like
exactly.
this film has like a historical weight to it in a lot of ways.
Yes.
That even the class stuff to me, it rings like it rings slightly hollow because like it like that was like there's like a slavery reference there that I don't know that like Peele knew like that was I don't know. So
I mean,
I
to me,
think that there's a lot of things that you can dig into regarding race, like the race situation or allegory in the movie, the classism in the movie. I think that it's really like what it boils down to is the duality of people in general. People are either good or bad, but technically it's not that simple. You're a little good sometimes, you're a little bad sometimes. Like it kind of all mixes together. And if you divide a person into two and say, well, this person's only good or this person's only evil, it's still a person. And one person's life isn't less than the other just because they're shitty. And I think that that's really what it's trying to.
right? It adds like so much. It adds so much nuance to the characters.
The other thing now, especially now that we've been talking about it and going at, talking about coming at this movie, having to view it as an allegory and talking about the symbolism and some of the stuff they're trying to say, I think that's what makes this movie really great because, yes, you can get all that stuff out of this movie, watching it, talk about it, theorize on it, speculate on it, because it leads you there. But at the bottom of it, when you blow all that away, it's still a good monster movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
very good.
that's what I mean when in the beginning, like when I said like it's a popcorn horror movie and it's also like an art house think piece and somehow is doing both of those things.
Yeah, I mean,
successfully.
you could make that argument that a lot of those older, I mean, a lot of genre films are that, right? And a lot of it's just a question of like how much of it is text versus subtext, and he puts more in the text, right? Like the monologues.
Maybe there's a lot of
interstitial-
subtext here though.
Sure, no, well, it almost like what he does is he like amps up the text, but then that allows there to be more subtext as well. And that's
mean,
what's so crazy is this how much of this stuff it hangs together.
The thing that I took away from it, and I think that as we were sort of discussing over email, this can be applied to many things, including like class structure and race structure and that kind of thing. But this idea of like sort of self-loathing and wanting to escape where you're from or what you are, and then
What's imposter
then
syndrome and
right.
survivor's guilt.
But like you escape, but you are always going to be linked to that thing, and you're never going to feel part of the world that you're now a part of, right? Like that to me was like the theme that he seemed to keep like hitting over and over. I mean, the whole thing with Lupita's character is that she like she was one of those people, but she escaped, and now all she wants to do is keep her family safe and away from those people, even though that's where she came from.
Yeah, I mean, how much of this, and like this may have been, I've like intentionally not read any of the explainer stuff on the internet because I wanted to have this conversation before I went and kind of explored it. I'm very curious, like, have you guys, or maybe have you thought about, or did this come up to you in this way, or have you read any of these things? But is this being talked about as like a political film? Because like to me, like you start to talk about the like return of the repressed, and you talk about the like class elements. Like there's also like the fact that the behavior and the like that the tethered are like certainly viewed as like an underclass, and they're wearing all red, and like they're executing its like takeover, and they're acting like really extremely and like brashly, and like there feels like there's a little bit of like commentary on like the political recent political times, if that makes sense. So
I mean,
I just don't know if that's like something other people are talking about.
I mean, I think that other people are definitely talking about that. I mean, I was reading a lot of like editorials from people of color, especially women of color, writing about it. So I know that what I was reading was more politically based in terms of like race, but I know that there's a lot of just commentary on the political aspect of it in general. I mean, he says it's about classism, and that's pretty political, especially in this timely.
Yeah, well,
I mean, look, I think either way, like he intentionally makes really loaded movies, and I think that I think it's cool that a thing this successful on the mainstream level is generating this kind of discussion.
Yeah, the thing that was almost I will there's like a lot of stuff I wanted to like press on, but I promise I'll leave it at this. During the monologue, and I can't remember it like word for sure, but I think the very end, I think it's the last line. She actually says, "We are Americans."
Yeah.
The-
Yeah. She
Yeah.
goes, "Who are you?"
And,
And she
like-
goes,
Yeah, yeah.
We are
It was
Americans."
it was such like at the moment that happened, I was like, wait a second, what the fuck is going on? Like that's when I was like, is this just like a very like specific political like sort
I
of
think so.
satire?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, like in retrospect, knowing what's going on and sort of, I think it lends itself to multiple readings as well. But that's like a line that's like it's so specific. You're almost like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So
No, I agree.
Yeah.
That line seems very pointed.
Mm.
All right,
Don't
guys.
touch your slipping up.
There's endless things to discuss, but we got to end it somewhere, Joe. We have very important questions to get to, I'm sure.
Hey, I tweeted. Let's not half-ass it, guys.
Jordan Peele's Us. Would you recommend this movie? Cece.
Yes, for sure.
John.
strongly.
Joe.
Yeah. I got an IMAX option.
Really?
Did any
What?
of you see any reason to see this in IMAX?
I
No,
didn't
but
know-
now
I
I'm kind of
didn't know it's
curious.
not.
My theater had IMAX for this, and
Only for the Hands Across America scenes.
I skipped it. But,
Joe,
you
I
know.
can't believe you haven't sang I Got Five in It Once this whole episode. I'm disappointed.
I really don't know the words that well, so
Start singing Fuck the Police for us. Let's see how far you can get into it before you have to stop.
I can't say half of the words looking like I do in that song. I
Casey.
do know a lot of them now.
Casey.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's a theater watch. I think this is like a pretty big horror moment and worth experiencing with an audience for sure.
Yes, give
Mine
Jordan Peele
seemed,
your,
mine,
your
seemed,
money.
mine seemed pretty into it, but there were definitely people who looked like they just did not know what to do with themselves when it was over.
Do you wish like he could just throw Key like a sympathy part at this point? Like, come on.
He's doing all right, man.
The fucking-
Yeah.
He's the Adam Carolla to his Jimmy Kimmel.
Dude, I love Key, man. He's so funny.
Yeah, he's
He's
very
like one of my favorite comedic actors.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Us, 5 thumbs up from the BGH crew. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Tales of horror that will give you the creeps. This is going to be extremely painful, Mr. Verrill. The most fun you'll ever have being scared. Creep Show, rated R.
Now playing at a theater near you.
Hello, I'm Nell Campbell from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. No email tonight. Nobody emailed in about your show last week, John. I don't know what's going on.
God damn it, people. I need the affirmation. No, I'm just.
We are on Twitter, though. Joe, fire away.
All right, you want me to? I'll do them. I only have Ask BGH in front of me because John usually does these. John, do you have them in front of you?
John, you do the classics. Joe can do the Ask BGH.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Split it up, buddy.
All right, Joe, you start. I'll pull up the classics. I didn't have
All
that
right.
yet.
That's
I'll
not
start
how
with
we.
this.
That's not how we do this.
All right, hold
We do
on.
classics first.
I mocked Eric for his show outline, John, but right now you're proving apparently we do need it.
All right, here we go. Here
Just
we
saying.
go. Oh, you know what? I don't think we have any new ones. No, we don't.
Oh, well, there you go.
All right,
right,
then,
so-
never mind.
We monitor
No
two
BGH
hashtags, hashtag BGH Classics, which apparently we have none. If you're listening to an episode and want to send some stuff in, go ahead and do that. We also use Ask BGH, which Eric made a point over email this week. If you guys think it's really just for questions about the movie that we're discussing, it's not. By all means, feel free to just ask for life advice.
And 9 times out of 10, when you ask a question about the actual movie, we're like, dude, we just talked about it.
Yeah, exactly. So first up from @BDD Paul, He says, "Is there a snowball's chance you guys might have a meetup in Texas this year?"
Nope.
And no, there is not. Although John and I are trying to coordinate our different work trips to Austin, so maybe we could do something.
Austin is about the only place in Texas I think you could get me to go.
Well, I was gonna say I've learned because I've actually been interviewing some people down in Texas for a role we're trying to fill, and there are people like Texas is. I knew it was huge, right? But like someone was like, "Oh yeah, I live in El Paso, but I'm considering moving to Austin." I'm like, "Oh, how far is that?" "Oh, it's an 8-hour drive." I was
Holy
like,
shit.
"What?" So I mean, they were gonna like permanently relocate, but
Yeah. You know what else is pretty big, John? The fine state of New York.
It
yeah,
is.
and yeah, that's fair. It's true.
Take it in.
is. John's
next up
John's never been past like
Austin is like in the middle though. Like you would think it's like pretty.
Oh,
it's close. So
biggest state in this fine country of ours, John.
yeah. I've looked at a map. So
next up, our friend at Blaine Gazer. He has a very good point. Says, "Joe's take on the kid from Babadook reflected my thoughts to a T, which makes me think, what are some of the most annoying characters from horror films for you? Mine is, you guessed it, the fucking kid from Babadook." I can't think of anyone more annoying than that goddamn kid.
This is something I ranted about in that episode, but I did not like the kid in the Shining remake, and I've made my thoughts on that pretty clear.
Tooth.
wait, but like you're talking about the kid on the Shining remake from TV, like 1997 or something.
No one has ever pissed me off more.
Blaine didn't give any stipulations. As
You've been holding on to that for too long, Eric. I get worried.
That's fair.
God, characters I don't like. It doesn't have to be a kid, presumably.
Yeah.
There was that one guy from Surf Nazis Must Die who had like the high pitched like laugh. I forget. Like
I was I could name like 15 trauma film characters that I can't stand. But
in Day of the Dead, right? The original Day of the Dead. There's how like there's like the
Bob the zombie.
No, there's the two like really obnoxious soldiers who are just super racist the whole movie.
Yeah.
They are the worst, and it's difficult to. It's partially the acting, it's partially the writing, it's kind of the whole thing.
The filmmaking, it's a package.
Anybody else?
Nothing that comes to mind. Nah.
Next up from our good friend Mike Snunion, he says, "How would someone know they were talking to each? How would someone know that they were talking to each of your doppelgangers and not the real you? Also, do you know where I left my keys?"
I mean, they're not really like opposites, right? So it's just like they have a red jumpsuit on. I don't know.
Yeah, the guy like makes like weird guttural noises more than.
I was gonna say
I do that like that guttural Tina from Bob's Burgers noise a lot, so I don't know that you'd be able to tell.
Now that we're talking about it, my daughter is now 3 weeks old as of yesterday, and Leslie and I were talking this morning. And like, I have not heard her make like one like cutesy infant like coo or anything. It's just been nothing but like.
Yeah, it's mostly grunting in the beginning.
I was gonna say, they don't really make cute noises for a while.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while, Joe.
Just like Jesus Christ,
grunting and crying.
Just shit, eat, and sleep.
Yep.
It's a pet rock.
Pretty much.
We're just getting out of that now, so.
Literally, like, do you guys remember how long it took before your kid's shit started to smell? Like, this was like 2 days. Like, I thought we had
like
more
a
of
week.
a window.
It's usually like a week.
It's just like,
well, all right. We don't need to get into it. There's a lot of personal issues going on here.
No.
You're saying your child has personal issues.
Oh, she is like a goddamn champ. Like, she blew out a diaper by like day 5. Like,
oh God, it's gross.
All right. Next up from @RealJoeScar. When on the commode, do you fold or crumple? How many squares are we talking about here? Also, do you go to multiple passes with a single handful, or do you get a fresh handful for each smear?
Multiple passes? What?
Lastly, do you look at it?
I'm going to be honest with you, Joe. I eat a lot of roughage, and so mine are mostly one wipers.
No. All right. Well, there you go. You don't do a second pass just to be safe?
Yeah, no, I do. I totally do. Yeah, but if it's with the same paper typically, unless there's something.
And who's taking the time to fold? Like, you crumple. It's just like for
I think I might do both.
Like, how long do you want to sit there?
I think I might do both. Like one fold and then crumple.
And if you have enough squares and crumple, you've got enough room for like multiple swipes
Crumpling
on
it-
clean
That
areas.
happens. That's what's wrong with your septic tank. If you have that many, that many folds.
Crumpling is very inefficient.
The important question, and I'm curious if any of you will actually answer it, is he asks, "Do you look at it?"
Oh,
That was the question.
every
It
time.
was it was in there, yeah.
Why
Not
would
I mean, I
afraid
guess
to
you
say
got
yes.
to
You
to make
got it.
sure that like you've
Yeah. What if
Listen,
there's blood in there? Or
listen?
something,
At
Joe?
my
You
age,
know.
you got to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with Eric.
Oh,
I
God.
mean, I'm kidding. Really,
That's the
but-
first sign
We
of
got to
something's
judge
gone
for
wrong.
size too, right?
yeah. Well, to be fair, I mean, Eric, you said that you wanted not movie related questions, so
This is
here we
great.
are.
I love this. Honestly,
This is going to be the moment of the podcast in our entire history that separates the true fans from the
honestly,
not
these
fans.
are the best Ask BGH questions we've had in years, Joe. So keep them going.
Yeah. Next up from @Monty_Monte, he or she says, "Hey Joe, which Morbid Angel album do you consider their best work and why?" To me, and anybody else, feel free to jump in.
It said
Domination.
Joe.
Domination is the only one that I really listen to.
What do they sound like, Joe? If you could give me a sound effect. Right.
No, I mean they're considered like death metal, but I think they're pretty approachable actually. So you might not find them that terrible.
True
Are they
Norwegian death
more
metal?
approachable because they don't wear as much corpse paint, or?
Or any.
Oh, okay.
They're real weird. So their lead singer, they had this guy David Vincent, who ended up leaving and then coming back, and like everybody was super excited when he came back, and they ended up putting out like one of the shittiest albums that you've ever heard, and just completely like destroying everybody's hopes and dreams. And now he like sings country music or something weird. So
There you go.
I was never like a giant fan of theirs, but I really like Domination. Like I'll listen to that one a lot. So sorry, I probably let you down here. Next up, another one from Blaine Gazer. What are your thoughts on the rabbits? My thought is, while they are referenced as food for the tethered, they also represent the tethered as failed experiments, since rabbits are often used as test subjects.
Yeah, Cece had a bunch of smart thoughts about rabbits in the email.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true. And like rabbits can mean duality or rebirth, and they also, are burrowers in tunnels. And in Native American lore, they're known as like the trickster, the shapeshifter. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stuff.
Really quick on the rabbits, did y'all see Shelton posted? I think it might have been in Spoiler Zone on Slack. The daughter is wearing a shirt that says like THO, and it's basically a Vietnamese word it's the Vietnamese word for rabbit.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
God damn it, this movie.
I
That's
know.
why it's like for people, when people are like, well, he didn't mean that. And I'm like, dude, Jordan Peele put a
Well,
lot of
and that's-
thought
wait,
into
and
all
that's-
of this.
Someone said
that's-
he didn't mean that. Like, what? You don't do that by accident.
That's
Like,
where,
you're fucking,
but that's where
are
like
you
the
insane?
I think that's where the Kubrick comparisons actually become really apt, because of the way that Kubrick would like obsessively make everything intentional in his scenes, like background,
Yeah.
foreground, everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of intent there.
All right, next up from our good friend Sophie at Philly's Femme. She says, if there was a tethered version of you plotting their revenge underground, how would they do it?
Murder.
I just burn this motherfucker down.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I think they would come on this podcast and have some relevant insights. And then you guys know shit was about to hit the fan.
I mean, I'll be
Yeah.
honest. Most of this movie I just related with the tethered. So
Yeah.
So sad. Oh, Eric. Oh, yeah.
Anybody else?
I just get it. I'm just saying.
Yeah. That's fair.
Next one. From another friend here, Evan Sleed. He says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how amazing are Winston Duke's thighs?
So amazing.
Is
Winston
he-
Duke is
he
A+.
the is he the
So did-
dad?
Yeah, he's the dad.
That
I
whole
didn't
scene,
realize-
that whole scene where he's trying to like seduce her right before all the shit goes down is
Oh, God.
hilarious.
That
He
hit a
has,
little too close to home. I'll be honest.
He
Like when he's
because he's wearing
position-
glasses.
Like when
in
he's
this.
positioning himself on the bed for like the ultimate seduction, like that was so
Yeah.
funny.
He plays the base. I can't remember the name of the character, but in Black Panther he plays the like
Baku.
Yeah, he's like the neighboring tribe
Oh no
leader.
shit.
Oh, I didn't
And
know he was in
he
that.
he's fucking huge in Black Panther, and he's big in this, but he's like they like nerd him up a little bit, so it did not put it together for me. So, yeah, he's great though.
Very
Physical specimen, love it.
Next up from at S Wilson 833, our good friend Miss Star. In case Cece hasn't explained yet, what was the significance of the rabbits? If she has, update coming to Secret Murder Jams playlist? Question mark.
Yeah, we got to get Mark on it. Get
yeah, I think
Mark
Mark is
on
the
it. Huh?
Mark's busy in his third or fourth month of rebanding our Twitter icon, so it's gonna be a while.
Yeah, I just had to update the Goodreads like first thing this morning.
Mark literally I can't get into it. Mark has literally put more effort into this than I think he has raising his own child.
Let's get
next up
Mark
from
on it.
I'm
I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say that anytime we need something in the website.
Got Mark on.
Yeah.
That's great.
See, thank you. I tried to say it 3 times. Nobody's listening. Thank you, Joe.
Our good friend Skizbot says, could you kick your own ass? I bet I could.
Yeah.
I'd have so many mean things to say to me.
Oh yeah, I mean I could cut myself down real fast.
I mean, how would that be different from every day?
Exactly.
Next up from at Cody Yolo. Here she says, do you think they should have dropped the tether element because it's too supernatural and creates logistical problems as well as barely used in the film? Instead, just keep the clone element.
So he's referring to like the fact that not only are they
the connection, right?
Yeah,
like,
that they're like actually connected, and that there's only really one scene that it really matters. I mean, it's a fair point that it doesn't come up that much in the film, but then when it does, it's like really important. So when the son kills his own tether, that's like obviously the way
I
that
mean,
he does
a lot is made of the tethered part when during the first monologue when they're flashing back to her childhood. And you're seeing the girl at the carnival and then the little girl underground and the dad. That part was really effective where like the dad at the carnival is all drunk and walking, and then they cut to the guy underground walking through the hallway all weird and creepy.
Well, to me, that's where this is like, it gets to the point of you're not actually supposed to believe this is real, because it's so exact. And to your point, it was super effective, but
these are the areas that I honestly feel like some of this, I'm not going to use the word sloppy, but I think some of it feels a little underbaked to me. I think the movie as a whole like rises above it because it's so good, but I could have used like maybe a little more clarity on some of that stuff.
I mean, I thought that just to like harp on it for a second, like I thought that it was really effective because during that monologue, Red is talking about how like she's having to live the same life except opposite, and I think that it's supposed to be creating that empathy for her because she talks about how the above ground 80 meets her husband and falls in love with this prince, but then below ground she's just like shoved into this relationship with this like person who just like mumbles and grunts, and then like she has to have children she didn't want. And I think that like I took it as just kind of humanizing her and trying to
but it is
unclear
though, and I think that the point being made is like it's unclear if that, because you never really see the, or maybe you did, but I feel like you never really saw the controlling hand, right? Like, like it's intimated that it was a force thing, but it also seems like maybe there's just a supernatural force keeping the two things aligned, above and below ground, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just unclear. Like it's not really fully spelled out.
I can see that for sure.
Pay attention, guys. We're trying to wrap it up here.
I can't tell you guys why, but I'm getting a little misty here right now. I can't talk about it. Next up from at NY Lone Davenger. Lori, she seems like a great person. I dug the 80s / childhood references in Us. My favorite was the Coppertone Cove fast food packaging. Less obvious than the Thriller t-shirt, but a nice tip of the hat to the Goonies, I thought. I remember Hands Across America, but now I've dated myself.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much good stuff. It's literally endless.
The one, I think it was Shelton again who mentioned, because he always mentions rando stuff. But apparently, there's like a moment where either the mom or the dad in that opening sequence talks about a movie that's being shot at the pier, and they actually shot the Lost Boys there in 1986.
You know, I did think about that because where did they say they are? They're in
Santa Cruz.
So in the movie,
oh,
it's like
I didn't piece that together.
in the
That's
movie
cool.
it's
was in
Santa.
that
In the movie,
article,
it's Santa Carla.
Yeah.
But
It was
I
in
did.
that article you sent us too, though, from
Polygon.
Yeah, Polygon.
But I did think of Lost Boys because I'm looking at the setting as they were saying that. I'm like, this does feel like the Lost
That's
Boys.
great.
place.
I did not catch that at all. That's good.
I mean, I didn't catch it either. Just to be clear, that was a.
I just
Um,
blacked out in a sensual awakening after the Chud VHS was the first thing on the
I was
fucking
still
screen.
thinking about the
I
Chud
fucking
VHS.
lost
I
it.
completely missed the VHSs. Like,
Oh, the
everybody's
first thing
talking
I
about
did
that.
when it came up on a TV surrounded by movies, I'm like, what's on the VHS? What's on the VHS?
Yeah. Especially since he was focusing in on him. But I'm with Lori there. You said her name was Lori, right? I'm with her there. I took part in Hands Across America.
Oof.
It was one of my proudest moments.
My parents were super racist and not about unity, so we did not partake.
You were like throwing eggs. At
It
them.
is
You
such
were
a funny though. It's such a
Fuck
funny
those guys.
like cultural touchstone for him to make such a
Yeah.
like big part.
No, we were not a touchy-feely family. I'll be honest, like around Hands Across America, I was terrified that the Russians were going to bomb us at any second, though. So
Oh.
that's that's
Oh.
what I got. All right, we got a few more here. Next one is just an ad from Buffalo Wild Wings. So think about that. If you think Buffalo Wild Wings is good, you're a diarrhea person. Says it right there. Next up from at Dungeness R Us. Have you seen your doppelganger yet? Or someone else's on the show? I know Eric has a lot of people he thinks looks like John, but I'm talking true doppelgangers here.
So for a while, it's been a while since this has happened, but our friend and listener Fozzie Bear would like be out at clubs and he would send me pictures of like my doppelgangers in the gay scene in New York City, and some of them were like Schnars levels of uncanny. Like it made me feel like I assume the characters in this movie feel like staring at themselves, only with like gauged ears.
Well, didn't Fozzie move out of New York?
Yeah,
Yes.
he's back there now.
He's back.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
So
he
maybe
is?
he'll
I
maybe
missed
he'll hear this and start
Yeah.
sending you pictures again. I don't know.
Anybody else?
I mean, only the ones that Eric sends
Yeah.
me. You know.
I mean,
via-
I see mine
Like-
hosting the Conan O'Brien show every night.
Yeah.
So
Like the time I literally Googled German prince and like the third black and white photo looked exactly like Schnars.
Yeah. No,
Why
that was,
did you Google German Prince?
I mean, look at him.
because he was looking for me. He was like, that's not my doppelganger though. That's like a previous life. you
I
know,
mean,
experience.
you could have just texted John and been like, "Yo, send me a pic." Like, what?
No, it was live on the show. I don't remember
Yeah,
what
he
brought
did
it up.
See, there's a lot of weird shit that goes on. You don't want to know about.
have you guys ever seen that show Three Sheets? It used to be on. It was Zane Lamprey. He would
Oh,
just go to
yeah.
like countries and like do their drinking culture. He did one in Lithuania, and literally before we watched it, Leslie's like, everybody on the show is gonna look like you. And no joke, the first bar he went into, it was like a sea of me and my father. There was just like 20 each of us. Like everybody was like
Are you-
spitting image, like even the women.
Joe, are you Lithuanian?
Yeah, I'm half Polish, half Lithuanian.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. Wow, that is white.
Yeah.
Wow. Damn,
So-
bro.
It's the OG white.
Yeah.
Might be surprising to look at me, but yeah. All right, we got a couple more here. At Drop Your Linen, what's your best poop story? I've got one where I had to poop in a garden outside of a museum because of surprise mud butt. And when I
Oh.
checked on it, a few days later, doodle bugs had made a home of it. Nature.
Oh god.
Now tell me yours.
So this is not. I mean, it didn't happen to me personally, but it happened to my boss, and I had to go buy him new pants. But my boss at the time would eat Listerine strips like nonstop. And apparently it gave him diarrhea and he shit himself in the middle of a meeting. And I'm in the back, like doing intern shit, you know, like, I don't know, wrapping paper towels or something. And my boss was like, go buy Stan some pants. And I'm like, what?
Oh!
And then I go to walk to the front, and the entire front of the office smells like shit. And my
Oh,
boss is standing in
God.
the corner of the meeting room with everyone else, like with his back to the wall, and will not come out of the room, not let anyone leave. So I had to go like find some random ass trousers
That's
in the middle
fucking
of downtown
awful, dude.
Atlanta
Oh my
and
god.
bring back like 6 sizes for him to try on which size fit. Then he didn't tell anyone like, oh, excuse me, or like, let's postpone this meeting. He just went back into the meeting with new pants on, like
Oh.
nobody would notice.
Damn, bro.
Yeah.
You saying that just dislodged a memory from when I was a kid of a teacher in high school like reaching up on the blackboard and farting and shitting her pants and running out of the class.
Wait, who?
I don't remember who it was. Yeah, I don't remember who it was, but
She's probably dead by now, so there's no reason to hide.
but everybody being
I
like,
was going to suggest we just move on from this question.
No,
but
I haven't-
I'm sorry. It's been
So,
ripped off.
when
Good job, Josh.
when my wife and I first started dating, we took 2 trips like consecutive years to Florida for like vacation. We drove straight through. I don't know if you've ever done like that New York to Florida drive, but it's like if you do it straight through, you're like hallucinating by the end. It's like a 24-hour drive or something, 25. So the first time, the way we did it, we left I think like early so that we were kind of we were crossing we were going to be crossing the border into Georgia from I guess South Carolina at like as the sun was coming up. So I take the previous I had the midnight to 3 driving shift. So I'm driving, I'm trying to stay awake. So I stay awake by eating. So I'm eating like trail mix. And way too much. Like, you know, trail mix, John, it's very fibrous, right? Like there's nuts and there's like fruit and stuff. So I'm just like
Jesus
I'm
Christ.
down in this stuff. So
Don't pull me into this story, please.
3 a.m. we switch. My wife starts driving. I fall asleep. I wake up at like 5:58 in the morning, which is more or less like around my normal wake up time. Bolt straight up out of sleep. I have to shit, and I'm like, mind you, like we haven't been dating that long, so like you know we're really gonna know each other here. I'm like, I gotta take a crap right now. You need to do fine. So like, and all of a sudden we realize we are 7 miles from the Georgia Visitor Center. So like, okay, that's
It's the longest 7 minutes of your
yeah,
life.
like it's fairly close, but not close enough, and like you can see the mile markers, so you're just like counting it down. So we get to the Georgia Visitor Center. I get out of the car, and I'm waddling basically just to try to hold everything. And it's like it's a ways before where you can park and actually walk into the place. So you ever been to a visitor center like in a road trip? Like they're not maintained very well. They're just like places to shit basically. And like
you
pick
don't
up,
want to shit there.
and
if
like
you don't
pick
have
up
to.
a pamphlet. Well, I walk in. There's 2 stalls. I open one of them, and you ever walk into a stall, John, like in a random public place where someone, like you can't even explain what happened there, but someone's done some kind of like Picasso-style spray across everything. So I'm immediately like,
not to pull me into this story, please.
I'm immediately
Why
like,
is he telling the story to you?
listen, I'm immediately like, shit. So
Look me in the eyes, John.
So I go to the other stall, the same thing. Someone has sprayed down both of these stalls, and I'm like running out of time. So I pretty much just had to pick the like least offensive one and just hover. But I made it, but it was like the most harrowing thing I've ever had to go through.
Ah,
This is the grossest 5 minutes of my
yeah.
life.
Anybody else want to share?
No.
My story is not going to live up to those. I just shat
Yeah.
the hood of my snowsuit when I was like 7.
Ah,
Wait a minute. Like you took it off and then pooped in the hood?
No, so about 7 years old. My cousin and I are out ice fishing with our dads. We're out in the middle of a lake, nowhere. I tell Dad, I got to poop. And he says, well, just drop your snowsuit, take a squat, and go. So I did. I didn't think about Amy.
Oh, wait a minute. Did you pull the hood back up?
That's brutal.
Well,
We
then
learned
we
that
had-
lesson.
Yeah, then when we got back home, we had to explain to my mom why my dad cut the hood off of my snowsuit.
yeah, that'll do it.
That's great, dude.
I
I have more, but I'll stop.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we're good. We're good.
I
here.
ate some expired deli meat before going to see Drive Angry.
We did that on the show.
I'll leave it at that. But I had a moment of clarity where I'm like, I cannot do this at the movie theater. Like, I'm going to
you
have to
did, right?
drive angry. No, I drove home.
One time, Mark was visiting me in the city, and like we were coming back out of the city on like a very long, like slow train ride, and he had to pee so bad he was like doubled over in pain. We were like a couple stops away. I'm like, "Are you gonna make it? Are you gonna be okay?" And he's just like, he was rationalizing it to himself in his head out loud, just like, and he goes, I'm an adult, so he's like, I can't pee my pants, right? And I'm like, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
But like I think he was just looking for like some
There's
support.
no greater pain. Yeah. I like to think my clenching skills in a pinch. I got Montezuma's revenge on the way going into the Lincoln Tunnel on the way to work, and I bolted from
Oh.
Port Authority all the way over to pretty much Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah, I
to
got
make-
stuck on the New Jersey Parkway once and
Oh.
had to go, and there was nowhere to stop.
Just a nightmare.
Can we
Right.
just whoever sent us this tweet? We're just gonna block them going forward.
No,
That's-
they immediately go to the front of the line.
Yeah. All right, we got last one from at Dusty Evenly. On a scale of 1 to Winston Duke in us, how strong is your dad joke game? I think I'm at a 12 right about now. Like not to toot my own horn, but like
I mean, your Instagram captions today were a little much. I had to like scroll. I was like, I'm not even giving you the benefit of tapping this. This is no.
you like poor goddamn Leslie. She's a fucking saint. Like she puts up with this shit because like you read it in like an Instagram post, but literally we were at the Arboretum today, and I'm walking around like, you get it? Like Lady Gaga, Bjorn this way. I'm wearing a Bjorn. Like you get it? You get it? You get it?
No, I know because I'm married to someone just like you. Hear it all day, and he's not even a dad yet.
Oh, there's like this spider web like climbing thing. I'm like, oh, this is the new Gwen Stefani themed area. Like, you get it? You get it because of that song she sings. And then like 5 minutes later, like the fact that Leslie hasn't fucking stabbed me in the face by now is just a.
Dude, you still have like 3 more weeks of paternity leave, so it could still happen.
This 6 weeks has been these 3 weeks have been the greatest 3 weeks of my life. I
Dude.
started to put together an Excel document of all the candy
I
bars
felt-
I'm trying every time I go to the
Even
store.
with dealing with the newborn stuff, I felt so amazing by the end of my leave, and I went back to work and it lasted like 2 days.
Oh, it's the best. You know what? I got a new phone and I did not install my work email on there. So like I have legit not even looked at work, like anything for 3.5 weeks now.
All right, guys.
They laid off like 40% of the staff, and you're just like, yeah, that's cool.
info at bloodygoodhorror.com. That was our discussion of Us. We're not sure what we're doing next week, but we're going to figure it out and let you guys know. Hope
We
you
will
enjoyed.
definitely
Hope you
figure it
guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
See yous.
Bye.
Bye bye everybody now. Okay.
Bye bye.